A word to the wise. We are an explicit podcast tackling choicey adult themes as well as entering spoiler territory if you aren't caught up with us. That would be the end of the third book. We are on our graduation episode of book 3, finishing out Morning Star by Pierce Brown.
Hey there, this is Cross.
And I'm PJ.
And we are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. Think of us as your drunk weekly book club.
And today we had a third. So we're changing up the format a little bit and actually looking at each other, which is different and interesting. And I'm liking it so far.
Yeah. So today we'll be doing our wrap-up episode on Morningstar. Today, as PJ said, we've got a special guest joining us. He's an incredible photographer shooting for companies such as Red Bull and many others, as well as one of my earliest friends from all the way back in kindergarten. Please welcome to the show, everyone, Kyle Lieberman.
Yay.
Hey, guys.
Woo!
So wait, you guys weren't doing video before this? That sounds crazy.
Not at all.
I'm so happy to see your guys' faces. This would have been terrible without seeing you guys. So especially because, with the state of the world right now, I haven't gotten to see a lot of people's faces. So it's so nice to actually see yours too. Like that makes this wonderful.
So heartwarming, Kyle.
I know. So I am Kyle Lieberman. I'm from St. Cloud, Minnesota, just like these two wonderful fellows here. Went to elementary, middle, and high school all together. I kind of went off, did my own thing. I'm out in Brooklyn, New York now. As Cross said, I am a photographer. I opened up a studio out here. I got a cute little puppy, great girlfriend, and a nice place. I love my place, love what I do. And I couldn't be any more excited to be here with you guys. This is so fun. This is a fun reunion all together.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I think that one of the interesting things, of course, we'll talk about how you got into the book series. Spoiler, I dragged you both into it at this point. Yeah, but you're obviously an avid reader compared to PJ. You actually read way more than even I do. I think you're voracious. What are some of your favorites?
Oh, man, putting me on the spot. I mean, I was going to say that's the first one that comes to mind. Yeah, I've read almost every single Vonnegut. I got a signed Vonnegut, first editions of Vonnegut. I actually collect them as well. No, I mean, a lot of terribly horrible dystopian, Chuck Palahniuk, any kind of weird demented shit I really love. And honestly, everything that I love is in the Red Rising series. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I just wouldn't read it until Cross literally had to buy me the entire all 6 books, all 6 of them. He had to order them.
5, but yeah.
Or 5, sorry, 5 at the time. Yeah. 5 at the time. Shipped them to my house and forced me literally to read them because it was the greatest thing in the world.
It was a birthday gift. I mean, it was fine.
Okay, fine. All right. You got that's a good excuse.
Under the guise of a birthday gift.
It was a gift. Okay. But in the end, I mean, I know it's probably boiling your blood to keep telling me to read these books and knowing fully well that I was going to fall in love and me just being yeah. And I think I downloaded an audiobook version of it, but I thought I downloaded an audio, but for some reason it was actually a digital version. So I looked at it and I was like, wait, this isn't an audiobook. This is a digital version. I want nothing to do with this. And so I did try. I really did. I put the effort in right away and it just wasn't enough. So no, I am so thankful though that you forced me into it because I do read quite a bit. I love reading. I love fiction. I love nonfiction. And this series was just it blew me away. I'm so happy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's especially wild. PJ has now completed the exact same amount of the books that you have, which is another interesting point that we get to talk about. PJ hasn't read further than you. You haven't read further than the 3rd book. So part of the reason that I wanted you on, A, because of the timeline in which you read it. B, I think you've got great insights. And C, you and PJ are at the exact same point in the story right now. So that makes for some interesting demarcations of topics. So without any idea of what happens afterwards, I'm the only one who gets that information. I get to maintain my overlordship over the podcast. So that's exciting.
I think the most interesting thing that we'll see come out of this is you and I got the books at exactly the same time.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And it's taken me this long to get to this point, and you finished it in like a week or something like that.
I don't understand how you could do this. Like, I feel so bad for you, honestly.
It really hurt.
Yeah, I could only imagine. There was points where like I just couldn't stop reading. Like I would, I remember, I think it was the second book where I literally got to the end of the book and I immediately started the third because I could not wait. Like I literally just like put it down and opened the third. And there was no stopping.
But it was at like 10 at night, wasn't it? Like you literally, it was late because you were texting me and you're like, oh my God, it's not too late for me to be texting you about how much I'm freaking out about these books right now, right? And I was like, no, keep the live stream coming. It's pretty great.
I wish we would have recorded those times, those old things to bring back to blurb into this.
Yeah. I mean, I think I still have those text messages variously. I snapped a couple of the screenshots for your in the moment reactions. Perfect. They're great. But before we get into talking about the book too much or the books too much, let's talk about what we're drinking. So, PJ, what are you having?
So I kind of went off the rails a little bit and made myself a cocktail. So now you can see it. It's like this bright ruby red. It is a blackberry whiskey sour. So it's 2 parts bourbon, 1 part Hennessy, and 1 part lemon juice, and then 4 or 5 blackberries all shaken together and poured into a sugar rimmed glass. And it's really good. I'm really happy with it.
Sounds tasty.
Looks good.
It looks really pretty. I got a nice picture of it outside by some houseplants, but
which of course all these will be on the website as well. So you can, nobody's missing out. We'll have pictures of everything there.
And then I've got Moon Man from New Glarus Brewing Company, Wisconsin. New Glarus, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think we talked about Glarus last week.
Did I have Moon Man on this last week?
Maybe. It was a New Glarus. I don't remember.
All right. Following that up, I've got old
we always have a secret beer just in case
from
the episode
North
goes
Coast
long,
Brewing Company. Now you guys get to see how much I actually drink during the podcast.
Well, you are like double the size, so
I don't actually usually drink more than what I say I do, but once in a while I'll have an extra beer just for wetting the palate.
Guys, my tolerance is so low right now. This is going to be so dangerous.
well, pace yourself well. Yeah. It'll be a good time. What are you having, Kyle?
Alrighty. So today I'll start with my beer because it's a Brooklyn lager. I'm in Brooklyn. It was the only thing in my fridge, which makes sense. So I love me a good old Brooklyn lager.
They're solid. It's crisp.
Super solid. So today I have a super incredible drink that my friend helped me out with. He is a certified whiskey expert, which is kind of a new thing. It's similar to being like a sommelier these days, but it's brand new. He is a level 1, which means he is a Scotch only whiskey expert. And he is doing his level 2, which makes him open to bourbons and all of the scotches around the world, and whiskeys around the world, which I think is so cool that this is like a new thing. And he helped me out and he's been just giving me so much information, which I was really excited for because like the timing was perfect. I mean, like I went on a whiskey podcast, whiskey and reading podcast at the same time as my friend became a whiskey expert. And I was like, wow, like I need to like learn, like I want to like understand what's going on here. And he was not shy in giving me hours and hours and hours of information, which I think is so fun. I'm very excited to have learned so much. So this guy in this huge decanter I have here, which I wish you could see, is a Springbank 10-year. Springbank's cool. We've had it a few times. We go snowboarding together and he'll bring little mini drinks with him and we'll drink out on the mountain, which is super fun. He'll give me all this information. And the Springbank that we have here is really cool because it's a floor malt. They floor malt 100% of their barley on site. Very few places still do that. And it's the only one that does it for 100% of their drinks, which I thought was really cool. And again, he shares so much great info with me and it's a really great drink. It's got a little peat to it, which I'm not a peaty guy. I'm definitely more on the sherry side of things, but I'm slowly getting more into peat now just by like having good, good variety.
You don't want to chew on charcoal, but
so he loves charcoal. He will chew on the worst, thickest, oldest chunk of bark possible. And it's what he wants. So I'm like, he's slowly introduced me to that. I'm still a sherry guy. I still love my Macallan. That's kind of where I started with in that world. But now I'm kind of going into bourbons, which are a little smoother, enjoying that. So I have a dram of this, this beautiful whiskey here, but in my cocktail, this beautiful cocktail I have here, it is some Bullets bourbon.
A classic.
In my cinnamon maple whiskey sour. So, PJ, kind of stealing your whiskey sour here, but I went with the ultra sweet version because I have the biggest sweet tooth in the world. And I was like kind of looking at like some options and I was like, whiskey sour sounds fun. And I realized I had a whole bunch of maple syrup from Vermont in my fridge. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to pour like way more like maple syrup than I should in this. So it's actually like more like it's like a maple whiskey sour with like, you know, like, and a little bit of fresh lemon shaving on top as well. I actually kind of grated it up, gave it like a little pizzazz. So
nice.
You know, I tried to work on some of the look and feel of it, and it tastes beautiful.
Good. The only time I ever tried to do that lemon shaving, I think it was on this show. I put way too much in.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a layer of pulp over the top of it. It was terrible. So
yeah, you were like chewing lemon pulp.
Yeah, it was really bad. But if you've done it well, I applaud you for it.
I tried to. You know, I mean, it all sunk to the bottom. I don't see any of it. So I don't really know where it went.
Maybe you drank it.
Maybe.
I today am having an interesting cocktail. I actually went completely out of bounds for the most part. It's a Pear 75, right? Icelandic Pear 75, which for those who don't know, it's an 1.5 ounces of vodka, 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, 1/4 ounce of simple syrup, and 2 ounces of pear juice with champagne to top. So I've had champagne 2 weeks in a row on the show, but it's really tasty. It looks great. It sucks in the picture. I actually had already spun out a lemon twist, but I actually didn't put it in the picture when I had everything staged for the website. So unfortunately, you don't get to see the nice garnish, but it tastes delicious. It's perfect. And then to follow that up, I've got from Sycamore Brewing Company Skittles, but it's spelled with Z's. Skittles, which is a hazy IPA. It should be pretty good. They've yet to let me down to lead off the show. Of course, we did our customary shot. Kyle did the 10-year dram. I did a shot of Bullet bourbon, and PJ, you did
tequila. Dulce Vida tequila.
Sweet. So with that, we're going to just talk about the books from here on out is basically going to be the move. Want to keep it focused on Morningstar as much as possible, but it's the end of a trilogy. So it's not like we're not going to talk about the first couple of books and kind of it'll all weigh together because it's the wrap up. It's the culmination of everything. But next week, we're also doing another episode where we're focusing on the whole trilogy and trying to break it out into those distinct thirds. So today will be mostly Morningstar. The first thing that I want to talk about here is that I have to do is explain to everyone that I dragged you both into this beautiful emotional wrecking ball of a series. Literally part of like pitching PJ and the whole concept of doing this podcast was eventually I could talk to someone else about this book series outside of you, Kyle, of whom had read it at that point because I bought it for you and you read it within the span of a week. Now that you're both done with it, we've said before you haven't read Iron Gold. I kind of want your thoughts on just overall how you felt about the book series, what you liked, what you appreciated, what you didn't like, and kind of what you're looking forward to in the next book.
I have something kind of interesting, I think, to kind of go right away into this, which is I did start Iron Gold right off the bat, like right away, because I was so excited and because I read it so fast. I just like didn't want to stop. I read like a page or two and I had to like straight up put it down. I like couldn't do it for some reason. I think like just like hitting the first trilogy and like finishing it and being so emotionally invested in just everything that happened. With that like fiery roll of reading that I was on and just that bender, like I started Iron Gold and I remember like kind of reading the first page and just being like, you know what? I like my mind was just melted for some reason. I couldn't do it. I couldn't like follow through and I wanted to, but like, I think I told you, Cross, and I was texting you. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I just like, for some reason, I'm just not like really into this right now. And you're like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, you know, take a chill pill.
I took a 6-month break.
Exactly.
When I finished the original trilogy, I took a 6-month break before I started Iron Gold, and I chewed on Iron Gold a lot longer than most of the other books. You know, the other books are very quick burners, and I chewed on Iron Gold, but I really liked it in the end, of course. But yeah.
I think that's exactly where I'm at right now. I think I'm on the same exact projection. I think like it's been 3 or 4 months now since I finished the first trilogy. So I can imagine in like a month here or two, or maybe even this podcast will just like spark me to be like, all right, let's go into Iron Gold now just to keep up with, you know, where you guys are at. But it was really weird. I was just hit by a big wall and I was not expecting it at all. PJ, how do you feel about that? Is that like do you feel like you're just ready to go into it, or?
No, I'm with you. I think not that I'm not looking forward to it by any stretch of the imagination, but having been in this trilogy for months and months at this point, how long has it been?
We've been doing this show since September, so yeah, right.
Yeah,
like it's been a bit.
It has been a bit. So having been sort of emotionally invested into this specific trilogy for such a long time, and having it sort of wrapped up doesn't necessarily make me want to jump in again. Or I'm not like needing to do that. Like between Golden Sun and Morningstar, I was like dying to get into it. Yeah. But I don't have that same feeling right now. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's just the nature of it being the end of the trilogy.
And question, do you feel like Pierce Brown maybe just wrapped up so well that maybe I just like it's not a cliffhanger, like Golden Sun was like a cliffhanger. Right. So now it's like there's not a cliffhanger. It's kind of just like, wow, he just polished that up.
Yeah, but there is still things that you can speculate upon how things will go. But it definitely
Cassius and Lysander.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I didn't read ahead, but I'm just saying that's where my head is at. I don't know.
And I mean, Darrow being a father and what that looks like while still being involved with the Sons of Ares.
Definitely.
What happens to the Sons in general going forward.
I think that something that's interesting that I just want to inject into this conversation for clarity, for everyone's sake. Kyle, like you said, you've read the first couple pages of Iron Gold. PJ, we've talked about this kind of generally before without being too spoily, but after the series ends, there's a 10-year time jump that happens. Right. And so that 10-year time jump kind of resets a lot of those elements. So with that in mind, talking about the way that the series wrapped up, where do you think that goes?
I think that's part of what's making me not quite as eager to jump in, or not sort of champing at the bit to jump in that I know it's not going to be the same story.
Yep.
And I've already become completely emotionally invested in this story. So it's going to be maybe not a hard transition, but a transition to invest in another one. Yeah. And also the audiobook I know isn't the same narrator.
Ooh, yeah, which is it's a sticking point for me inside of the audiobook. It's not necessarily a full spoiler, but there are multiple POVs in the second book series, the second part of the saga. So you're not just trapped in Darrow's perspective, which is fascinating. And it's a great change for sure. However, I think I'm of this opinion, not everyone is of this opinion, but I think they made a mistake casting different voice actors for each different POV, as opposed to just letting Tim Gerard Reynolds do the whole fucking thing. Because Kyle, if you even listened to the audiobook, Tim Gerard Reynolds, it's the best audiobook I've ever listened to, hands down.
Yeah.
I listened to the series the first time through, then I read it again, then I listened to it again, and that's where I've just been living on repeat for so long here.
Guys, I have a quick note. Crossland, you haven't even asked your first question yet, and I've already finished my entire cocktail.
Oh my god.
Is that normally how this works?
Normally I finish it before we record.
Our guest episodes, and this is what's wild, is with 3 people on and the amount of talking and pausing and everything, I go through my cocktails so much faster. I have to supplement with water in between, because otherwise I just the first time with Bingham, I got so hosed within 2 hours that at the end, when we were done after 3 hours of recording that episode, which was nuts, I was like, okay, guys, I gotta go. It's time to go to bed. But that was when I was like, okay, guest episodes, I have to drink water. I have to have water in between.
So that definitely should have been in the notes, because I do not have water in front of me. I only have a monster decanter full of whiskey and a full beer here and no water. So I am really set up for success, guys.
Well, we can for sure grab water.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think I need it.
So is it, any other thoughts on sort of the overlap? Like we said, there are a couple of lingering plot threads. There's obviously Cassius and Lysander, which Kyle pointed out. I think another big one, of course, is lingering. There's the docks of Ganymede and that whole mess that Darrow left in the Rim. And obviously the Ash Lord is still alive.
I'm excited to see how Octavia ends up coming back to life, because I have a feeling that's going to happen.
Okay.
What is this, Star Wars, where the Emperor's never actually dead?
I mean,
yeah,
the track record's there.
This is better written than those Star Wars plots, though. That's all.
Wrong.
At least it's convincing. That's fair. That's fair.
I do make fun of it out of love, but there's a lot of people coming back to life in this book series.
I mean, only a couple, and I think some of that perspective is that you're locked into Darrow, and Darrow is told one thing, but another thing is actually going on all the time.
Darrow himself.
Well, yeah, Darrow has died like 3 times, but
also, how many times can Mickey just like revive someone, like basically just like fix them? Like, I know he's the fixer, but like, man, Mickey, like you are like really like insane here, like how you can just fix everyone.
This is so why critical. I want to see what he can do mixing together wolves and people.
Ooh.
Yeah, PJ was talking last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, about centaur wolf hybrids. But what's crazy is PJ was talking about it for like 30 minutes.
The Howlers.
Guys, Ancient Aliens. Have you been watching Ancient Aliens?
I haven't.
Because there's a whole episode on that, and like, PJ, I'm totally on your side. 100%. If we can do it in our world, they can do it in that world.
Yeah,
100%.
Oh no.
Oh, dude, guys, I'm a total conspiracy theorist now. I've watched I've watched all the Ancient Aliens. Me and Marlene have been binging it. It's all real. Fucking aliens, guys.
I need to catch back up with that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was aliens, one of my favorite things. But it was aliens.
All right.
Season 14, guys. They really hit some new topics that are just killing it.
There are 14 seasons.
Oh,
that's amazing.
Only on Hulu. You got to go on Hulu, guys. 14 seasons.
All right.
I mean, Hulu
the crazy guy's still there. The big service. The crazy dude with the crazy hair. He's still there. The aliens guy totally still there.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay, so
just a quick little tangent there, guys. That's it.
Yes. Yeah, no, that was good. So talking about the book series as a whole, how different were your expectations at the beginning when we started in the mines and the Institute to where we ended the story? What were your expectations? How do you feel about kind of the way that this is structured and changed, comparing it to other, trilogy experiences, stories that you like?
The writing got better.
Yeah.
But I think we talked about this initially, the first episode, I think, of the first book. And you were like asking if I had any inclination of what was going to happen. And I think it's important to point out again, the intro to the book, like the prologue, that's at the outset of the Institute. Like he's already listening to a speech of Gold's. So I think he's pretty clear up front with what's happening and what's going to happen. So, but that said, it has progressed way farther, progressed from like space Hunger Games to something completely unique and really, really incredible.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, like, honestly, at the very beginning, I was apprehensive because obviously you had to force me into it and it took me forever to like really do it. And like, again, like, from all the beginning of the podcast here at the very beginning, like you guys talked about, like it was slow. Like the first part was slow and it was definitely a hurdle to get over, like that that first part of the first book. It still set the stage well, but like, again, as you guys have said a million times, his writing has grown so much. And I think by like the end of the first book, which by the way, honestly, like the first and second book, the first book, I'm still so emotionally attached to. I would almost say it's still like kind of one of my favorites. I like the pre-space, honestly. I like them kind of like the original Howlers, the original, like everything like that still has like such a soft spot for me. I like when it kind of like turned into like Star Wars fantasy, like in the second and third book. Like I think it had this like, again, you guys have said this 100 times. It's always like, I don't want to be too repetitive with everything. You guys have like,
no, feel free. Your voice, your opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I guess this is my first time here. So I've just heard you guys talk about this so many times. So it's kind of like funny kind of coming in this late in the game and, kind of having to reiterate all of it. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's so weird. We're at the same point in the book, but like, I feel so far behind you guys who have just been like constantly like mulling and just talking and like working through all of this. Whereas like, I read this like 4 months ago. I took a huge break and now here I am like like sweating trying to keep up with you guys.
I think in that respect, going back to conspiracy theories.
Oh, yes.
I think that's how I'm approaching this, because I've spent so much time like digging in and really analyzing things that like I'm finding way more importance in things that do not matter at all.
Totally.
You know, I think that's some of the joy of doing this format, right? Is that you would never, like Kyle was saying, you never would get that narrow on specific details if you didn't have to like literally labor over 50 pages for a whole week.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's some of the benefit. It's also part of the curse, right? Is that you might not get the same kind of enjoyment that like Kyle just got out of absolutely tearing through this book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because honestly, guys, like you guys, for like the amount of like word for word, like going into like the titles of the chapters and like dissecting them, like I can't do that with you guys. Like I am here totally to give you like a weird, like I read this 4 months ago, like I'm still like crippled from it, like kind of like analysis, which is very different than like what you guys are doing. I mean, quick sum up though, from like the beginning to the end, I read it so fast that like nothing stopped me. I was so into it. Like I was immediately hooked until the very end. Like I did not stop. There was no, like, I did not have any lulls. I didn't stop reading. It was pretty much like I read all 3 books like it was one book. So, I mean, that's the easiest sum up I have for that.
And I think it's written really well to kind of be presented that way. Like I could see, similar to, I think, okay, the big Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like 5-book single novel. So I could see this book having a special edition single book for the first
Lord
time.
of the Rings tome style, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it would
exactly.
just be.
Hey guys, quick pause. And you don't have to add this into the actual thing, but this is so fun. I love this. This is so much fun, guys.
This is what we do every week. It's just fun. We just add it with questions. So it's
you can put that in if you want to, just so everyone knows how fun this is. But like, this is really fun.
Yeah, it's a good time. We don't try to, we're not sugarcoating anything.
I sugarcoated the rim of my glass.
True. Fair. Good point. We talked about the expectations. One of the things that I want to say up front here is that I actually got a lot of help this week. I was having some difficulty focusing on a number of different things. I got a lot of help from one of my friends from the Sons of Ares subreddit. I previously referred to her as the morality junkie. So helped submit a number of questions here that we're going to be talking through. So just want to be clear with that. I'll credit each of the questions, but thank you so much for the help, of course. On that, we'll move in. We talked about how we felt on the book as a whole. I suppose one of the big questions for Morningstar has to be, what do we as like the readers gain and what do we lose when Darrow is revealed, when his mask is pulled off to kind of the populace at large, right? So Golden Sun, he's still lying. He's still not telling the truth about his, his being. We gain the trust with his friends that strengthens their bonds, but I think we lose a lot of things along that way as well.
I think there's a little bit of an unfair comparison there, because at the same time as when he was unmasked, so to speak, he was also subjected to a year of torture. That's going to really change his personality and change the way that he looks at everything. So it's hard to know what to attribute everything to.
To which moment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he changed a lot. Like just being in like the little torture chamber for a year, it's like that and the unmasking at the same time. It's just like so much happened all at once, like all in the beginning of this book. Like so much mentally went through kind of who he was as a person. He changed. Honestly, he changed a lot. It's weird though, because like he changed and he then didn't at the end. Like I don't know. Yeah. It's still I'm still figuring him out, honestly, even at this point.
I think that's a really good point, is that it almost feels like at the end he almost has a reversal of a lot of the things that were going on for a long time, because he's kind of feeling that goal come out, right? Like he's right at the finish line when he's killing Octavia. Well, when he's about to kill Octavia and, duel Aja. There does seem to be this kind of interesting reversal back to a Darrow that maybe is more recognizable from Golden Sun and Red Rising. But I do still think that we lose an interesting... I mean, it's the first time that Darrow is forced to be, or is allowed, I should say, to be truthful to everyone and doesn't have a choice, right? Like one of the things that we talked about inside of our Golden Sun review and got hung up on a couple of different times is the fact that Darrow is locked in this, and the entire second book is who can he trust And so the second book has this feeling of kind of like spy thriller on top of all of the other sci-fi stuff, because he also like can't reveal his personality to anyone. But the only case in which he actually does, there are only two circumstances that happen, three technically with Mustang, but the two big points are Severo, who actually Darrow doesn't open up to. Instead, Severo basically says, I know this, admit it. And then there's Ragnar, of whom he opens up to because he wants he wants to inspire the same sort of hope in him and not have him be like an obedient slave. And the third is Mustang, and we don't really know the results of Mustang until 300 or 400 pages into Morningstar.
Totally.
Yeah, I think there's a decent amount of just paranoia in Darrow throughout the entire thing, even after everyone knows. He seems, while we talked a lot about trust being sort of the theme of the second book, he has a damn hard time trying to trust people.
Except for Victra, who he just totally trusts, which is really weird, right?
I think Victra earns it, though. I think that's the difference. Is Victra actually is the most proactive character in the entire series, which is why she's actually my favorite.
She's the one who I wanted to talk a lot about on this episode specifically, because I think she really she earned it. She took a big page, of like what's going on.
Is she more proactive than like Severo or Mustang though?
Well, Severo's losing his head a little bit in this book.
Well, that's true.
He kind of lost his
point.
Yeah, he kind of lost his head a little bit. And like Mustang's cool, but like she's always like, she's the love interest. She's like, like she's always there. She's the rock in a hard place. But like Victra kind of like she was a bad girl and she came good, which is kind of fun,
True.
Like, I don't know. Guys, by the way, like I've already drank like 2 full things of this and like I'm already feeling it. I don't know if you can tell, but like I already hit a switch.
Oh no, yeah, I saw you lose the jacket.
Yeah, I'm already there.
Now, I think I agree with you, Kyle, in large part. I think that Victra earns a lot of her place, her stake, right? Roke earned it, or not Roke. Roke didn't earn shit. No. Severo earned it through loyalty over time more than anything else. Like, whereas Tactus kind of turned and flipped that switch over time and was really just going to power, Severo always believed in Darrow.
He was the only one.
I think he was more of a rock than Mustang even was, truth be told. Mustang was still a test every time. Especially in Morningstar. But we know at the very end why that is. It's because they have a kid and they wanted to make sure that everything is, good, successful, not just a piece of shit like her father. So,
yeah.
Which is what she saw, which is why she reacted the way that she did in the cave. Yeah.
Oh, shit. That just kind of came together in my head a little bit there.
Boom. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, perks of like reading way too fast. Like, I'm definitely going to be like mind blown by a few of the things you guys probably bring up, honestly. There's probably going to be a few things that you say that I'll be like, oh man, I read that way too fast. And like,
there's also my mind. A decent amount of stuff that I just forget. Like, it's been too long.
I do. Honestly,
and I've analyzed too much since then.
Yeah.
It's always funny to bring up PJ's predictions back to him, and he's like, I remember having that thought at one point, but like, okay.
I never thought that. Guys, I never said that. No, we literally haven't recorded PJ. You did say that.
It's like 3 episodes ago, like not that long ago, 3 weeks.
It makes me feel like disingenuous about what I'm talking about, but in the moment I genuinely feel like that, and then I'll say something completely contrary to it. And it's not that I'm like lying either way. It's just I just forget and I feel differently the next week or whatever it is.
I definitely feel bad that I have forgotten so many of the points that like when I did read this like 3-4 months ago, like I definitely had a lot of like things in my head that like I totally could have brought to the table right now. I'm sure some of them have already came back, so I'm really happy about that. But again, I am prepared and excited to be mind blown by a few of the things that you guys can like bring up. So do it. Mm-hmm. Just give it to me.
I mean, we've been talking a little bit about the characters and kind of that lens of like, what does Darrow gain by the reveal here, right? I think that he gains some obvious trust and some friends, like Victra doubles down. Mustang has an understanding because there was a personal introduction before the forced execution of Darrow for being a fake gold.
Well, Mustang fucks off and doesn't get seen for a couple hundred pages, so...
Right, like 150 pages, yeah. There is that component to it, too. So I think what's also really interesting here is we get a little bit of grounding in the Telemanus's perspective and how like rationally like democratic and forward thinking they are, even though they're also sold, even in the very first book with Pax, as like they're like socially elite brutes, but they're kind of smart, but they're not that smart. You know, I don't know. The Telemanuses are interesting. Manus.
I still think Sophocles is really the head of that household. Like Sophocles is.
I love Sophocles.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty funny. He's you know, it doesn't even spoil anything, but he's in the sequel series. Like he's still around because he's a fox. So whatever.
Foxes don't live that long.
Well,
this one does.
Anyway, so Darrow in this book more than any other begins to nab like tactical advantages that have like real universe spanning implications. One of those moments was the destruction of the Ganymede docks that just stands out in my head. Is it at least a little justified for some of the other characters as well as some of the other readers to think of Darrow as a villain or have a perspective on him as a villain now? Because he's doing the same sort of things that the villains would do to nab their same tactical advantages. This is a very Roke move. Even Octavia says that it's something that Roke did valiantly, you know, because she doesn't even know that it's Darrow.
This one surprised me. This one like kind of like took me off like guard a little bit. It was most like out of character, but in character moment for him. Because like it was nothing like Darrow at like from book 2 and like book like maybe like in book 1 when he was like wanting to tear the Golds apart. But in book 2, he came like kind of very holy in a way and like very like about like being a little more part of it. But like after the whole, Darrow was a different Darrow. And at the beginning of the book, when Sever wanted to blow up the moon, like Phobos, Darrow was like very against it. He's like, no, I won't take innocent lives. But then at the end of this book, he like totally took a bunch of innocent lives. So like even at the beginning of this book, he was like, no, don't do this. But at the end of the book, he was like, yeah, 100%. Let's go like totally take these innocent lives for like a big advantage. Where like if he had taken Phobos at the beginning, that would have definitely changed a lot of the rest of the book, but he didn't. So at the end, he did like a different situation, but they're different situations, but it's still like kind of overall the same decision-making process. And I'm just confused as to why.
I totally agree. I think that some of that comes down to the sort of the repeat of the mantra of, you know, Severo would have taken advantage of this and would have killed them here. Right. And that's like the constant refrain in the back of Darrow's head is like, I made so many mistakes. I've lost so many friends because I made the wrong decisions. And I think that he sees the opportunity to make the right decision and just goes for it, which the only other time that I'd say he really kind of did that is the Gala in book 2, right? When he decides to reject the idea of blowing up the whole thing and instead duel and provoke Cassius and Cassius's family so that he can have, you know, a place, earn his way back into society. There are only a handful of times that I think Darrow's ever behaved that way, but I think it's a combination of him being kind of jaded at the loss of Ragnar and some of that decision making and everything else kind of just scarring him and realizing what he needed to do in the moment.
So I think this sort of arc of the progression of Darrow's tactical thought process, I think it would have been a lot cooler to see, or this sort of theme would have been cool to see more of the Academy and see him reject some tactical ideals of sacrifice in the moment and then sort of actively move towards them as he sees them as viable tactical options in the real world after he's spent his entire time at the Academy probably fighting against that sort of tactician.
I think we do see that though, right? Because even at the beginning of Golden Sun, which is the end of the Academy, he doesn't want to sacrifice his own troops and like realizes the blood and the loss and everything like that. And then finally here he comes to this end of realizing that he needs to, that sacrifices are necessary.
Right. Yeah. It would have been cool to see that get tied in more explicitly.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because maybe that's where my confusion was, is like, oh, at the beginning he didn't want to, but at the end he does. So like maybe that is the progression. Maybe that is just me like not realizing that, oh, maybe it just made sense that at the end that is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And maybe not necessarily the right thing to do, but it's the trolley problem on a much larger scale.
Do you think if he knew he was a father, he would have made that same decision? I think he would have like 100% made the decision if he knew he was a father.
Oh my God. I think that is one of the most interesting questions to backpose, because it's also why Mustang doesn't tell him anything. It's because she doesn't think that he'll ever make the right choices if he knows that he has something else on the line. And that is so fascinating.
I think that is like kind of like, I mean, he didn't know he has a child, but like that was the most like knowing he has a child after that was kind of like, oh, maybe that's a good thing. You know, like stopping war for 50 years by doing this thing. But also like if he knew he was a father, maybe he would empathize more with the families that he just totally like incinerated. So it's like, I don't know, like how, maybe, I don't know how he would feel had he known he was a father before.
All that I was going to say is if the Jackal was in the same position, he wouldn't have even hesitated. And Darrow also didn't hesitate. Mm-hmm. You know, like in the same sort of way they treated, and we talked about this in the last couple of episodes, but particularly near the end of the book, Darrow and the Jackal start to mirror each other on opposite sides of the ideological spectrum. They start to kind of appear to be the same brutal archetype of character. And I think that is something that they both agree was the right call to do. Mm-hmm. You can compare that immediately, like the deaths on the moon of Luna, basically for him to take sovereignship, with the deaths of the Ganymede docks and the sacrifice of all the Ares out on the rim. Nice. That was the Broken Lager opening. I switch between my cocktail and beer constantly, so I rotate. But.
Gotcha.
What I was gonna say, just to kind of jump a little bit, does Mustang explicitly know that EO was pregnant at any point? Like, is she ever aware of that, and how much it fucked up Darrow to figure it out?
I don't think so, but I thought that she told it to him. He told it to her at some point. I don't recall, but because I think that there was a conversation in Morningstar about that.
If that conversation had indeed happened, that's probably why she didn't tell him.
Right.
Because it really fucked with him.
It fucked with him. It was to the point where he's like, yep, I'm going to die. I'm going to kill myself at the beginning of Golden Sun and blow up as many golds as I can with me. Thanks, Harmony, for this bomb. Fuck Harmony.
Also, where'd she go?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yep.
Huh. That's a weird plot thread that's dangling there. Yep. Like Cassius and Lysander.
Book 5.
Well, Cassius was dangling there for a little while next to Severo. And I don't know. I'm still of the opinion he should have stayed there. But, you know.
PJ has some very strong opinions about Cassius in general.
No, I have strong opinions of Darrow's unending trust for people he shouldn't trust.
Yeah. I mean, Cassius is a whole thing. I mean, I think that's a future question, so I'm going to save that. But yeah, Cassius is like a whole thing.
I still don't trust him.
You shouldn't.
But even at the end of the book, you're just like, I mean, it's hard. I think he's going to be
he earns it, you know? I think that he earns it. I think he's a loyal dude. He's, you know, I think we talked about this in the very last episode.
Loyal to who?
Good. Loyal to the code, right?
So what code?
Yeah, to the gold. He's a gold. He's a total like gold. He agrees with the golds.
Right. Roke, I think, is a true societal gold who's baked in like a pixie, who has all the behaviors and like wants the structure to stay the same. What Cassius stands for is what gold originally stood for. He stands for the idea that, yes, golds are on top of the pyramid, but our point is more to lead, not to control and lead with fear. It's to promote the survival of humanity, which is what the original like iron golds were there for.
So he's like the Ron Paul of the Olympic Knights.
Sure.
Like
probably
he's in the inner circle of the sovereign, but is he really a Republican?
Fair point. Yeah.
I can see it that way. Yeah.
No, I like that. I like that point. We'll talk more about Cassius in a second here, of course. But what was your favorite new character in this book? We don't get a ton. We get a couple.
Pax.
Pax right at the end. Just the baby squealing Pax.
Baby Pax. That's my new favorite right there.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I mean,
it's so cliche of like an ending to like end with like a baby. I think like it didn't actually surprise me. It was kind of like, it was like a surprise, but it was like, oh, okay. Like this is cute. Like this is a funny, but I don't know. It's fun. It's like, I like that there's a baby because it does like lead to, again, where book 4 goes into like 10 years and we got like a new, like a whole new development. It's like, all right, it introduced a new character. So it's not all the same old characters. Like, I like that there's like a new introduction, a new fatherly figure. Like, I think it will change the dynamic. And like, it's not a cliffhanger, but it's a fun way to wrap it up. I don't know.
Yeah. It leaves you kind of wanting for whatever the next thing is. It's good.
Yeah.
Good point.
I have 2 answers. One is Moira.
Moira was in book 2, but
was it book 2? Okay,
yeah, she was technically in book 2, but
I think Holiday.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think I'm somewhere between Holiday and Steffi, but why Holiday, PJ?
She brings a level of reality, just being real. Like, she's a real down to earth grunt of a person who kind of gives that boots on the ground perspective to Darrow that he kind of misses out on a lot of the times, because as we've talked about before, almost everyone that he interacts with in the first couple of books are the most elite of the Gold Society.
Yeah.
Like, there are very few people in this entire series that are golds that are not Peerless Scarred.
Right. There's only 100,000 Peerless Scarred. I think that this is actually one of the few problems that I have with the original trilogy on the whole, is the fact that we only interact with Pliny as the only non-Peerless Scarred gold is strange.
Whoa, he's the only Peerless Scarred, like non-Peerless Scarred?
Non-Peerless Scarred. He's the only non-Peerless Scarred in the original.
Except for maybe some of the people in the Iron Rain that you get like a line of them getting cut down. Like, that's about it.
Right. They're not really characters, right? So you don't really get a sense of the way that the rest of Gold Society works outside of the very elite, which are the top of the families that we see all the time. You know, we get Carnus, we get the entire Bologna family, we get Nero, we get the entire Augustus family, of course, and all of the perspective with all of the different kids. But we don't get really non-Peerless Scarred perspective outside of Pliny, and he is a whiny Politico trash for sure.
Wannabe Peerless.
It is kind of an ironic title based on our perception of it. Peerless Scarred, kind of indicating that like they are so rare that they don't have peers amongst themselves. But it's always seen. Yeah, it's all we interact with.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Totally.
I think that's also something I wouldn't have picked up on if we weren't.
I did not pick up on that till you just said it. I had no idea.
Yeah. I don't think I would have picked up on it at all if I was just blazing through the book.
Because there's like 15. I think the number is 15 million golds or something like that, and there's 100,000 Peerless Scarred. Right. And so those numbers are crazy and very different. And somehow we managed to not meet any other.
I think it's even less golds. Than that. Or more golds than that, because I remember the figure of
it might be 60.
I want to say it's like 0.1% of Gold Society is Peerless Scarred.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's somewhere in Golden Sun. It's Roke's explaining it at some point in that book. But yeah, it's weird to me because like, what do all of the rest of the golds do? If this is what all the leaders of the golds do, like, what are they doing?
And if you're fighting against Gold Society, shouldn't you sort of look into what actual Gold Society is? Not just the weird elites. Like, that'd be like going and only interacting with members of Congress and determining that's what Americas are like.
Oh, sup, Jeff Bezos? How's it going, man? Oh yeah, that's a totally normal situation for living. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know that's kind of a strange comparison to make, because I think this entire book is trying to make more of a classism style comparison, but at the same time, like, you're still only interacting with the elite of the elite of the elite.
Do the golds have jobs? Do they do things?
That's
also a problem, because we don't know.
What's fascinating, it's only brief. Textually, what we know for sure, the one example that we get of a Peerless Scarred really having a job is Fitchner being deployed to the asteroid belt and being a middle manager, which is weird for a gold. So like, how many golds are middle managers? Why aren't silvers or coppers doing that? Silvers and coppers are doing that in some situations, but not in others. That's the one mental wire that twists and untwists for me all the time. I'm like, what the fuck are all these golds doing except for fucking each other? Like,
a lot of that.
Yeah. Like that's my like one stopping point on this whole thing is like I want a little bit more there.
And it's also the fact that Fitchner was working for Quicksilver.
Right, which is also bizarre.
One thing, actually, there actually are a lot of non-peerless Scarred, though, or non-peerless, because, like, aren't all the people at, like, the academy and the school before that, like, in the first book, like, aren't they technically not peerless? Or
well, not at that point, but...
Not at that point. So, I mean, like, all the kids are still, like, developing.
And most of them leave as peerless Scarred.
Most they leave as peerless Scarred.
If they leave as peerless Scarred.
They leave as peerless Scarred. So, like, we still...
And they didn't get shamed.
Yeah. But there are shamed ones. I mean, there's still like some of them in there that we got like a. Yeah, I mean, because if they don't come out, then they don't come out as. Wait, where do the golds come from then? If they don't come out as peerless Scarred from there,
well, only specific golds get invited to the academy, right?
Invited.
So that's a subset, or not the academy, the institute.
The institute.
So that's a crazy subset, right? So if we know that there's one on each planet, roughly, there are what, like 7 or 8 institutes or something like that, and then there are only 1,000 kids that go in each year, and roughly 50% make it out, and then you have another cut of however many people fucking die, and then some of them are going to do despicable things. Also, how does Antonia have a peerless Scar? Like, what?
That does explain actually how the percentage though of like the percentage of peerless Scarred.
Antonia is a peerless Scarred?
Yes.
Okay, so anybody who survives the institute.
No, there are shamed. Shamed exist. And
how is she
without a scar?
She literally got crucified.
She did, but she lived.
Literally. Oh, I think
some of that's the family politics though too. Like because it's the Juliais. The Juliais, the biggest
I forget that this isn't a fair fight.
Not fair at all.
It's not. It's not meritocracy at all, but it gives the appearance of meritocracy.
Mm-hmm. I'm still upset that Cassius was so bitter towards Darrow specifically for Julian.
I was gonna say, guys, did he really need to be that angry at the very, like, let's go back to book 1 for like 1 second.
Like as soon as he figured out that he was just kind of put up against someone, he should have figured out that someone was put up against his brother.
Yeah.
Like,
come on.
Be angry, sure, but don't be angry at the person who randomly got selected to fight him.
For like 3 books.
So I think the trick there is that Darrow didn't tell him, and Darrow lied about it, right? So Darrow actually lied and pinned it on Titus. There's so many T names, but pinned it on Titus and said that it was Titus that did it. And then he finds out that it's not, and it's a lie. And so I think that, again, between those first 2 books, a big theme sitting in the background is that trust loyalty thing. And so I think that it just goes to show that, like, if Darrow would have been honest, he was trying to play his cards as best as he could, but didn't realize.
I think Cassius would have killed him right there.
Well, I think that it would have gone differently because I think everyone would have ganged up on Cassius because they all would have been on our side of the idea of, like, everyone had to kill someone, you fucking idiot. Like, but I think that Cassius is particularly harmed because he was lied to.
He's an emotional
guy. And he's an 18-year-old.
He's an emotional guy. Cassius is just very emotional, and like he deals with a lot of family problems. He's got like family people getting killed all the time. Like, I mean, like
all of them murdered except for his mom. His mom is an asshole who just wants Darrow dead.
And Darrow's kind of the prop, like, you know, kind of had a hand in a lot of the deaths. So like I could see Cassius being like, oh man, this kid like kind of like screwed up a lot of my family. My mom hates him. Like, shit. Like, maybe I should not like him too. Like, there's a lot of things that kind of push Cassius against Darrow, I guess. But I don't know. It's still kind of, it's weird because it like, there's a lot of things that put him against Darrow, but like, does that mean he's a bad guy, or does that mean he was just in a place of being against Darrow? Just because you're against Darrow doesn't mean you're on the bad side. He was never actively with the Jackal, like really like planning with him to do bad things necessarily. He was always kind of, Cassius was always on the side trying to do like other things, you know, like he was never like with the Jackal.
That's true.
So that's why I don't put Cassius in like the Jackal side of bad things. I think he's always just like in the middle of like not liking Darrow for kind of a good for reasons, but like, you know, he's just in his own world. Honestly, Cassius just is always in his own situation.
I'm an Olympic knight and I can sleep with whoever I want, including Mustang for the summer when Darrow is gone.
That's so.
What is that whole thing?
It's fucking Mustang.
It's so funny. Yeah. Jesus.
How do we know that Pax is actually Darrow's kid and not Cassius's?
I think it's the red eyes. I don't know.
Do we know that for sure? And that answers the spermies question.
I just swallowed lemon. That was awful. Like the lemon twist that I had in here just went down my throat. That was disgusting.
If Pax ends up having red eyes, that answers the color of the sperm.
The color of the sperm. The quote color of his dick. Yeah.
I
can't believe that we let this question persist for so long, BJ.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's a great question.
The funny part is that you asked it and you're like, does he have gold semen or red semen? Because we knew it was important with Bryn, so we have to think about that. And I was like, that's so funny because that question gets answered in the end, but I hate
it. Doesn't get answered, though. It hasn't been answered yet. We don't know. Yeah. Is Pax considered a pure blood gold? Or is he a
half-breed like Zebra?
Exactly.
Half-breed, in quote.
Exactly.
3/4 breed?
How good is...
that's weird. Good point.
Just how good is Mickey is really what I'm asking.
Exactly. Dude, Mickey's pretty good, man.
Mickey is pretty good.
I trust Mickey.
Daryl even made a joke that Mickey didn't touch his junk, which is extra funny.
Oh, really?
Like that was in that hospital scene in this book in Morningstar in the first 150 pages.
No,
go talking with the red.
No, guys, this is all natural.
No, don't worry about it. He's like,
no. The joke he said was that if you wanted to know, he should go ask his mother.
Ah, yes, that's it.
He didn't say anything specific about what happened to it.
I think it actually pays to talk about culture for a second here, and then we'll jump into kind of the villain question, answer more of the Cassius stuff that we've been talking about already. But I really like the differences in culture that you see between the colors over the course of the entire series. Of course, you don't get a good view on everything, but like Red having this kind of like sub-Irish culture is interesting. The culture blues, like the way that they're raised and treated and react is wild. They're so different, like just locked in. Of course, gold's this like aristocratic thing. And we don't get a whole lot of Silvers, but we do get Quicksilver, and he's interesting. He's an interesting lens on what that color is.
I don't know if that really counts because of how off he is compared to the rest of society in general. I don't think you can glean anything off of Silver Society.
You could do the coppers, though. We get Podinius, something like that.
Quicksilver reminds me more of like a gold. He just has this like kind of thing to him.
Close.
Like, he's just like, he's so above. It's like he earned like a gold level in the silver. Like he kind of just
right.
So there's when they're at the museum and they talk about sort of the what's it called? The pre something America.
Yeah, pre-war. It wasn't quite pre-war, but it was like not
pre-republic, not pre like. Pre-imperial America and 21st century ostentationism as the stereotypical Silver like art style, and he's just like splattered it all over his walls in a way that like people, it seems like it's unbelievably so like over the top with it, which we come to find out is like he's not.
It's an intentional mislead.
Yeah, exactly. But that was a cool payoff to how Quicksilver acts, but it does not tell you really anything about Silvers in general. I think
fair, because he's got a different affectation about him entirely.
Mm-hmm. He's doing everything he can to come off as just a really wealthy Silver.
Now that we're through the trilogy, I think that it's interesting to like meditate on the different relationships that are built throughout the novels. You know, there's a number, of course. We see the ending of Darrow and Roke's relationship, which is a big deal in and of itself. I know that very early, PJ and Bing and Tib also painted me as Roke in a corner. And I and Tib, knowing how that story ends, is very unfortunate.
I mean,
of course,
it's still true.
My soft heart bleeds, PJ.
Say it more flowerily.
I thought that was flowerily.
More.
My soft heart bleeds for
there
you.
You go. There you go.
The wound. Wound you've inflicted. There's a number of relationships that are very important over the course of the series. What were some of your favorites? I have a preference here that I can announce right away. Pierce Brown did a magical thing, and I think I talked about this maybe at Red Rising at that point, but he did a magical thing with Darrow where he created a love triangle with a dead person as a part of that love triangle. Io is dead, and yet he's still so focused on her for so much of the story and is constantly combating his relationships for Io with his relationships for Mustang. And Mustang, when she becomes aware of Io, is also kind of like aware of that, and it feeds into the whole thing. That is like creating a love triangle with a dead person is brilliant. Even
before she knows who Io is, and she knows her as Persephone, she's
aware because he's saying it in his sleep in the Institute.
Well, there's that. Yeah. That said, I don't know if it's just because I have multiple brothers or my time on like different sporting teams, but the camaraderie between Ragnar and Severo, I think is the most natural and funniest pairing of the entire time. Like it comes across as two very different people interacting in sort of a comedic way, but it's so naturally exactly what happens on a team or in a family. Like they act like brothers, and it's perfectly done, but also fucking hilarious most of the time.
I think that's so interesting too, and we talked about this in the moment, but like Severo knowing what to do when the Obsidians are revolting is strictly because of all the time that he got to spend learning with Ragnar when Darrow was in the box, right? When Darrow was removed. The only reason that he kind of has that familiarity in the moment, knows that action is the way that they respond, is because of those moments, which I think is fantastic telegraphing from Pierce Brown.
Yeah. And I think that's what's really cool with the relationships is less of like as you're saying, PJ, kind of team sense. Like the Howlers at the beginning were really cool, but the fact that they kind of stayed throughout the whole trilogy was Severo still like, even though he took over the Sons of Ares, he still had these Howlers throughout the whole thing, like as like a group relationship. I thought that was really cool. I think there's a lot of like pairs of people who were really interesting. Like, again,
Clown and Pebble.
Yeah. I mean, Victra and like Severo getting married, like I think is so interesting from the very beginning. Like, again, because I read it so fast that like everything happened really fast. And like from the very beginning to like the end, it's like, whoa, like
even for me analyzing it week by week, 50 pages at a time, they got married in a fucking heartbeat.
Right? That's kind of what I thought too. I was like, man, and it actually worked. That's the craziest part. It wasn't
within 10 pages, they went from being not dating to being married.
Married. Yeah. 100%. And then
we never saw them get back together. We saw them break up, and then we heard that they got engaged.
Well, Severo hung himself for the record between that point.
That did happen.
Really big statement. And then was directly addressing her with, "We are the future. We together are going to be the," and it was, that was interesting. But I feel what you're saying.
But totally. Like all I'm saying is backing up what you're saying, even having read it at a slow pace, that was super fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So your favorite pairing is the Howlers plus Victra Severo as that like relationship builds over time, Kyle?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of like obvious ones as well, like kind of the ones you were saying. But I mean, also even the Mustang Darrow kind of thing was always going to happen, but it was nice to kind of like, it was so fluctuating and in and out, and you never knew. And like, where was Mustang throughout all of this? But like, I don't know, like it was kind of nice that it did end kind of on a positive note. I don't know. There was a lot of like negative things that happened. A lot of people died, like a lot of relationships, people died. A lot of people died throughout this saga, like throughout this trilogy. Like so many people died that a lot of these relationships, like we want to talk about Morningstar, it's like, man, there's not a lot of people left. So like, it's kind of nice that at the end of the book, there's some positive relationships here. Like 2 of our married couples are married at the end and alive. Like that to me is really special. Yeah.
I don't know if you have followed much of what we've recorded for Morningstar, but
1 or 2 episodes.
The first episode, like the intro episode, we put together a Deadpool.
Oh my God.
Oh no, I didn't hear about the Deadpool.
This was a nightmare.
Oh God. There's so many people.
Crossland put forward like 25, 30 names, something like that. 18 of them got paid off on the last episode.
Really?
And we decided to do a third of a shot for each one.
Oh no. So I don't think it would be as bad, but like I saw literally today, actually, like I don't remember where I saw it on, but it was like George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones, and it had like a bookmarker for every death on like all of the books, like kind of stacked up, and it was literally like 100 like fucking little stickers sticking out of the book, and I was like, whoa, that's fucking intense. And I was thinking, I was like, man, for this like trilogy or the whole thing, like it'd be really interesting to see just how many of those stickers are sticking out of the book there of deaths, because there's a lot.
There's a lot. I think that's actually something that makes this series better. You know, we talked especially in the first book about this kind of having like the first book has a young adult-ish feel. But it still has mature moments, of course, like Pax dying, that's sort of like cutting off the hand and him getting stabbed, and like the Jackal like trying to tear through Pax to get to Darrow is obviously a big deal. And then a lot of like the back half of the book is brutal. The first half you could pin it up to like YA. It kind of feels like that. Yeah. The second book totally graduates in terms of gore and grotesqueness and like the way that it treats death and characters as though they're throwaway rags. And this third book really is like, Moira? Who was she? I don't know her. She's dead, though. She was a Fury. She was kind of important, but she's dead. Yeah, it's tough. I think what's so fascinating is as we're going through the series, Pierce Brown is also getting older. He's aging from his 20s into his 30s. When we talk about the back half of the series, he's only 5 years older than us collectively sitting here talking about this. So we want to talk about it. He was putting out Morningstar right now at our age.
Oof.
So... like wild, A. B, where's it going to go from here? If we think about some of the things that we like as themes as we're growing up and kind of figuring that out, growing up at whatever, 28, 27. Like, yeah, I mean, it's only clearly going to get...
I'm still 26.
Well, fuck you.
Old ass motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Has Pierce Brown commented on any of your podcasts yet?
He himself has commented on a couple of messages that we have posted variously, but not directly on the podcast. He is a very big fan of the couple of podcasts. There are three of us that do this. There is the first one was Howler Pod, who they're guests next week. We're going to talk about that at the end of the episode here. Hail Reaper, who is another podcast that sprung up a week before we released our first episode. So right around the same time. And then there's us. So we're the three podcasts that really covered this in depth. Cool. There are a couple of other ones that read it because it's fantasy, but he is a big fan of Howler Pod and really liked them. They had the board game come out this year. So there's a board game for Red Rising that came out this year.
Oh.
And on that, there's a Howler card, and that Howler card, the first Howler in the frame is Pierce Brown, and the second and third Howlers are the hosts of Howler Pod. So the three faces that are on the card are Pierce Brown and the two hosts of Howler Pod, which is super cool.
That's intense.
When is the movie coming out? So Pierce Brown is a screenwriter, right? So Pierce Brown is a screenwriter. That's what he does between books. And he's worked in a number of different TV rooms and whatnot. He's been working and shopping around scripts for a while. He was close to landing a production deal, didn't pull it off because it wasn't going to meet his expectations. So I think what's unique here is that because he is also a screenwriter, he can position himself better than most authors could to sell something out. So
is he positioning himself to be the screenwriter for
showrunner,
the series, though?
Yes. Yeah. So with TV series as it goes, you don't typically have one person who writes all of the scripts. It's generally a writer's room. So you have the lead showrunner who's in charge of the overall tone.
If it was.
So uniquely, there are a couple of examples where it definitely is. Craig Mazin wrote all of Chernobyl.
So good.
Scott, whatever his name is, Scott Frank wrote the entirety of Queen's Gambit.
So
a lot of these miniseries projects that came out are single authors that are framing it as a X period movie, right? So you're thinking about the miniseries as like instead of it being miniseries, it's a 5-hour movie or it's a 6-hour movie, etc.
I will say, I don't know if I've mentioned it yet before on this podcast. I'm sure I have, but maybe it was before we actually started releasing stuff. Chernobyl is my favorite piece of media ever.
It's fucking
I think you said
incredible.
In the trailer, but yeah.
Did I?
Incredible.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's so well done.
I regret watching half of those episodes on an airplane while I was flying, because it was like on Delta. So like I watched it on the airplane, and I regret it because like I wish I could watch all of them on the big screen, because like so beautiful.
So as far as being in the podcast space goes, if you ever watch it again, watch it with the companion podcast with the director.
It's with Craig Mazin. It's not the director. The director has shifted each episode, but Craig Mazin, the writer.
The writer.
Yeah.
So he breaks down his decision-making process of like what really happened versus what was changed for dramatic effect and why.
Craig is my favorite person on the entire planet. Craig Mazin, for the record.
I feel slighted.
Script Notes.
And offended.
He hosts the only podcast that's better than ours called Script Notes.
Yeah.
Which is with John August, who wrote Big Fish and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and a number of other movies that are great. He was a Tim Burton partner for a number of years.
Yeah.
And wrote a lot of those movies with Tim. But so the two of them have a podcast and have had it for years. And they talk about what it's like to write movies and what the world of like screenwriting is like. But it gives you so much insight into the production process and how that all pairs down and looks.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's been talking about The Last of Us ahead of The Last of Us actually coming out, this new series that he's writing a little bit, pieces here and there. He was talking about Chernobyl before Chernobyl came out. And the way that you like would write something like this or Red Rising or Dreaming Up series. He was a guy who sat in on the first Game of Thrones pilot show with D&D and Craig told D&D that pilot was a piece of shit. They need to go back and redo it because it was garbage. There was no way the pilot was going to sell. And he took his notes out on one episode and he just read them out loud. He's like, none of this makes any sense. These characters are illogical. They're not bowing properly to kings and queens. They're not respecting the authority of the room. You're not setting the environment right. And it's like, clearly Craig Mazin knows what story is.
Nice.
John August did the humor for Iron Man 1. So he did the humor rewrite. Yeah. Which
Iron
is
Man 1's
crazy.
good.
Iron Man 1's so good. Anyway, that was a complete tangent. The point being, screenwriting, very important.
Very important.
And you could in this example give Pierce Brown like singular authority over it. But I think at the same time, you kind of want to have a writer's room because you want other people to also be able to flesh out scripts and things you might not have noticed. Because I'm sure there are things that like PJ and I pick apart, for instance, or that any number of fans pick apart that like he didn't think about at the time, but we're able to draw the lines and connect. That's
all right. Pierce, if you're listening, and I know you are,
we know you're one of our 500 listeners.
I'll join your writer's room.
We all will.
I'll jump in. I will do this for you. I know you'll appreciate it. I'm an idiot. Don't listen to me.
No, but like it's good to have a bad perspective in the room. So like maybe you're just going to be a low tier writer's assistant.
Straight devil's advocate.
There we go.
Yeah. You're just there to get the cookies and coffee.
I mean, do I get to eat some of the cookies and drink some of the coffee?
No, that's deducted from your pay. Deducted from your pay. Yeah, no.
I quit.
So I think it's worth talking about because I think Pierce Brown pulls these off like no one else. What was your favorite plot twist? What was the favorite moment where the knife was stabbed in and spun and you had to freak out and react to it? What was your moment?
Weirdly and surprisingly, the point when Severo jumped out at the end.
Yeah.
Like there was just so much death.
Yeah.
That in retrospect, it makes total sense that he got such a he didn't get an epitaph after dying, even internally in Darrow's head. But in the heat of the moment, for whatever reason, it never crossed my mind that was a ruse. And I think it was just because there were so many other ruses that it just kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah, I mean, when he cut Darrow's hand off and stuff, I was like, oh my God, like there's no like coming back from this. Like, dude, he's fucked. Yeah. Like they really got themselves in a hole here. Like I honestly, like I would say like the biggest surprise was that all of that from the moment like Cassius like shot quote unquote, Severo from like to the point where like he killed Octavia, like all of that, every part of that was just like, what the fuck? I was just like, they're digging a hole. They're digging a hole. There's no coming out of this hole. Can't be possible.
I'm still of the opinion that Cassius is not on Darrow's side. But I can agree that he probably, his morals aligned with him in the opposition of Octavia. So
yes, I don't think he's not on Octavia or Jackal's side, but he's definitely not on Darrow's side. Totally okay with like that thought process.
I'm okay with
he's evil though.
Kind of a parallel.
Yeah, which I think is more dynamic anyways. I think it's better that there's like multiple people in like different points of like, you know, the spectrum.
I expected this sort of relationship out of the Obsidians. I expected this to be the relationship with Sephi, to be something kind of parallel and separate from the Sons of Ares.
There's still room for that to happen, though.
There is still room for that to happen.
There are still multiple books like after this where like Obsidians totally
and apparently there's 10 years that we get to wait. So
totally. I think the Obsidians had too much stuff happen like in Morningstar here that like they just like followed through with like a lot that like I was surprised that they followed through with so much that they just like kind of did I mean, Darrow still had to go through a lot. Like, I mean, he literally had to like kill Obsidians and like kill golds and still like deal with such a huge amount of like, that was a big part of the book right there was like trying to get the Obsidians. I mean, I think it felt losing Ragnar. That was a weird section. That was a really weird section.
It's almost disconnected from the rest of the story, but it is like it's still central.
Yeah.
Each of these parts actually feel very distinct, whereas the other stories are all kind of blended together. But here they're more unique.
This book really has like three different kind of 3 or 4 different like really big sections to it. Like the whole beginning was kind of its own area, but then there's like, you know, going out to like meet Sephi and Ragnar dying and like kind of being in the, you know, the North Pole in a way. And then, then there's like the spaceship battle with Rogue. And then there's like this whole crazy twist ending. Like it really had like these big sections to it.
Which could have been entire books in a different person's hand, which is wild.
Yeah.
Like you could have spent so much time inside of these different sections. Yeah. I think it's almost, I
think he needed to spend more time with the Obsidians. It felt unearned.
Yeah. It was too fast. Yeah. It was like, I think I kind of wanted a little bit more. Like when he went and killed the Golds and then, you know, the
Asgard. When he went and claimed Asgard, and it's just like, shoomp.
It was too fast. It was like, oh, wow, that was easy.
Yeah, it was too quick for how much they were building up, how little they would respect him without Ragnar.
Fair.
Like it felt like
he did do a lot though.
They still don't like totally throw in their lot with him, right? Because they still rebel against him at the first moment of it coming up, right? That's the whole like Severo kind of retaking the Obsidians and being like, no, shut up, stop trying to rebel, stop killing all the Golds, come back to us and understand. But I think I agree with you. There's a core misunderstanding where the Obsidians aren't strictly aligned with the red/democratic ideals of the future society. No. We're going to call that the Republic now, but
the Republic. Yeah. I like even Sephi too. Like she didn't choose to go with Darrow because she wanted to go with Darrow. She kind of chose it because she was against her mom, who like
was a piece of shit.
Who's a piece of shit. Like she was like, man, fuck this. Like you've been lying to us. Like you knew that these Golds were like, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I think Sephi's on her own world, kind of like Cassius. I think they're more of a parallel. And I think they'll maybe...
I agree with you. I think that those two characters run in parallel.
Ooh.
Within their colors, though.
Yeah.
Within their colors.
Yeah, within their colors, they run in parallel. Yeah.
Even so, kind of going along with what you're saying, but not in a parallel kind of way. I think I would be much more satisfied with this if he had put in like a single paragraph of exposition of explaining Darrow going through and recruiting the other warlords of the Obsidians.
Did, but it was Sephi. It wasn't Darrow. It was Sephi recruiting, which is why they all joined.
And so that's why it doesn't feel like a good payoff. It feels like Darrow didn't really do anything to recruit the Obsidians.
Agreed. What I'm saying is I don't think that they have loyalty to Darrow. I think they have loyalty to Sephi. And that is a potential fear going forward. I don't think that that's a...
Then lean into that more and make that tension.
they did with the whole revolt.
It felt flat.
It did feel flat. It did feel flat, but I think maybe that's maybe that's on purpose. Maybe like in the next books, it's gonna be like, whoa. So maybe something's gonna happen with that. Because I feel like the Obsidians, there is like a big untold story there with the Obsidians. I think there's just more to happen. I feel like maybe like we're feeling a little flat with them because like maybe there's some more to come with it. Because I feel flat with them too. And that's why I feel like I'm kind of have this anticipation building in me of like something's missing.
Man, the hardest part of this whole thing is like biting my tongue. And I know that like readers all the time will write in, like listeners to our podcast will be like, how don't you fucking talk about that right now? And I'm like, it's because I can't. They haven't experienced it. I can't do it.
I was just going to say, Crossland's face is behind his actual microphone, so I can't see what his reaction is.
This is so unique because we're never on video. And so like there are a lot of times where I'll just like reel backward in my chair when PJ says something, hit the mute button and be like, oh my God, he's so close. He's so close. And like a lot of people have talked about it in our reviews and otherwise. They've been like, PJ sometimes is Nostradamus and the other times is fucking so wrong that he's like a peasant in it just shoveling a shit pile. So yeah, I mean it's
I will tell you, like if you take some dice and roll them and use those to predict things, you're gonna be more accurate than I am. But I am once in a while very correct.
Fair. Yeah, No, I'm very excited for the kind of outlook there. I think that I agree with you though that it could have been painted better. Thinking about the 3 books though, we can take a second and meditate on this between the 3 of us. How would you rank them? How would you rank the books if you had to pick the order?
Fuck.
I think Golden Sun number 1, Morning Star number 2, and Red Rising number 3.
So I think I'm weird in this where I actually Morningstar is my number 3, Golden Sun is my number 1, Red Rising is number 2. Red Rising does such a good job of building the world immediately, and like creating the environment and getting you invested in these characters. Morningstar does a great job with payoffs, and it's a wonderful book, and putting it at 3rd is not a slight at all. But
I guess I'm gonna throw a total wrench in this. I'm gonna go Red Rising 1, Morningstar 2. And I don't remember anything from the second book right now.
Fair enough.
What the fuck? Golden Sun is so good.
No, it's so good. I love Golden Sun, but like right now in my head, and maybe I'm just like a little fuzzy because of everything that I just had in front of me. But like, I love Red Rising so much. I think it started off so well. I love the Institute. I love everything that happened, how everything started. I love the payoff of Morningstar. I don't remember anything that happened in the middle right now. I am just like totally blanking on all of it. I remember the beginning and the end, and I'm just like,
oh man,
I'm just in that place.
We have 3 entirely unique.
I love that.
Opinions,
which is great.
Which means every single book by one of us is rated 1, 2, and 3.
Yes. Has a warrant. It's truly warranted, which is fascinating.
Yes.
This is not even in our script for the record. This is not a question that I was planning on asking. It's hilarious that we landed on these 3 different moments.
Yep.
I feel like I'm wrong in all of these, but like in that, like maybe like I feel like you guys, I mean, it definitely like 3 is kind of like, I think kind of almost the best, but I just love 1. I don't know why, but I just love Red Rising. The very beginning.
It's fair.
So I guess I approach it looking at it from all 3 of them, in that I get some great exposition and great world building from 1, but I don't get amazing story.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I don't think 2 would be as good as it is without 1.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. But if I'm just analyzing the story, 2 is better. But I entirely see where you're coming from in that 1 being very, very good in that it sets up so much going forward.
Wait, you went with book 2 as your number 1.
Correct.
Right, though, PJ?
That's what I'm saying.
So we didn't. We were totally
not
unique,
quite.
But
not quite. Okay.
Close.
So book 3 wasn't anyone's favorite then?
Yeah. I don't think it was.
Interesting.
But that's not to say that it's not a really good book, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the trouble that I have is like it doesn't feel like you didn't hit a slump in this book. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It paid off all the things, right? And for the most part. And so that's okay. It's okay to end that way.
That's interesting. I don't know. It's interesting that none of us is like, oh yeah, number 3 is like the best. I would kind of like, I really love 3 a lot.
I did too.
It's just really interesting that it's not one of our favorites.
Yeah. I'm torn. I really like all of the different character moments that happen in 3.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about duos earlier. One of the things that I wanted to like reference back to, PJ and I were asked this question on a podcast that we were guests on.
Ooh.
But we were invited on to High Key Obsessed by Thomas Boomhauer. Great show. We discussed at the time, we were in the middle of Golden Sun, our favorite bromance inside of the series. So the options at the time were Darrow and Cassius or Darrow and Severo.
Ooh.
I added Darrow Roke because PJ didn't know what was going on. So I just wanted to like kind of feed into that. But
I never
those
liked
3 options. Fuck you. But given those 3 options, what would you choose and why? Let's break this out now for the people where we weren't fully able to explain. We can now that we're finished.
And this is why I love book 1. I loved Cassius and Darrow's like bromance. That's why I love book 1. I loved their bromance. And like even when it went sour, like I still loved those 2. Like I liked I liked Cassius being like, I don't know. I just really like, I felt like I was in high school and like this drama, like just like, it felt like a drama. Like I felt like I was like keeping up with the Kardashians a little bit, like in the first book. It was kind of fun. I don't know. Maybe
it really did
like,
feel like that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. It was like a reality TV show. Honestly, it was pretty funny. And I think maybe that's why I was so like into it. I mean, my girlfriend watches that stuff and I guess I watch it on the side. I don't watch it, but like, I watch it. And
it's
like
there.
Maybe I was just like into the drama. Maybe that's why like number 1, like the first book, Red Rising, was just like so interesting. It really like had just like, it kept changing. Every chapter there was just like another thing happening and it was like all in one environment. Whereas like, again, as like these second and third books were like very like sectioned off with like big things happening. The first book was just so like fluid, one space with just a lot of different people all interacting. I loved those bromances. And like Severo and Darrow didn't have like a bromance in the first book, like as much as they did in the second and third, where they were like, buddies. The first book, it was like Cassius and Darrow that really like, I don't know. It was so interesting.
And Roke and Darrow. Let's not discount the boy Roke. Let's not discount Roke.
He was kind of a side character even then, though.
I didn't even like him back then. I didn't like the poet.
No.
I've never been into the poet. I don't know. I always felt like if I had to predict someone was going to like throw a wrench in shit, like it would be Roke. Like at the very beginning, I feel like I just never liked Roke. I kind of always had like a weird, sneaky suspicion of Roke of being like something just like is fishy about him.
And this is why I most likened Crossland to Roke.
That makes sense.
I'm brutalized here, boys. This is so unfair. So unfair. But I weep for the albatross around Darrow's neck, which is the trinket of Yeo that he wears for the entire story. Anyway, I find that fascinating. That's just a complete side note from Golden Sun. It was a poetry moment. And no, it's true. I do definitely break out a lot of the poetry for the group of us inside of the story. That's one of the things that like I don't actually think gets enough attention from this series is the way that Pierce intentionally layers in poetry, because he loves and reads so much like ancient Greek poetry and like lives inside of that space while he's writing this series. Even today he's rereading the letters of Seneca, the Tao of Seneca. So he's like totally going old school Stoic. And I'm like wondering how that's going to impact some of the writing going forward. So I want to spend some time to talk about this book and its relationship with villains. There's a handful, of course, that we have over the course of the series, but really we get a lot of our like background villains brought to the forefront here in kind of big ways. We have Aja, Octavia, and the Jackal. And PJ wants me to talk about Cassius here, so we'll put him in the like pile. But talking about those 3/4, how do we feel about the villains of the series?
Cassius did kill Fitchner. I just remembered that.
Well, I think Roke did, actually.
Nope. Cassius did.
Cassius. No, yeah, you're right.
Cassius killed Fitchner. I did just remember that, and that makes me feel things.
Yep.
PJ definitely feels things.
I do not like Cassius.
Okay, well, I know you've talked about it maybe on the other situations before, but can you give me just a super quick rundown of just why you don't like Cassius so much? I would love to just hear a quick.
Because his decisions are entirely emotional, which is fine, but also he decides to justify those quick emotional decisions for years going forward. He will dig in on an initial gut reaction and won't change his opinion on things, even though maybe the facts don't line up with what he reacted upon emotionally.
But that's more family driven, though. What you're talking about is really the Julian problem here, right?
That's his entire story arc. That is the entirety of his interaction with Darrow is, I hate you because you killed my brother.
Until the third book.
Including the third book.
But up in the third book, he does wrap his towel around him when he comes out of the hole. He does give him some.
Yeah, he treats him well.
He treats him well right off the bat. He's the only person who does. But
he still treats him as less than human. To be clear, he's like, I'm gonna give you some things because you deserve those, but at the same time, I don't know that I can fully vouch for you. It does have that impression.
Yeah. Okay, so PJ, do you think Cassius is gonna be a good guy or a bad guy in the next couple books? How do you feel? Because you don't like him. I predict you're gonna say he's gonna be a bad guy.
No, I'm not. I don't think he'll be a quote unquote bad guy.
Okay.
I think he will be a primary focus, and if not a main character, I could see Lysander being a main character looking up to Cassius. So Cassius would be sort of a moral compass for somebody that would make him sort of he's adorable.
Linus.
We are seeing a live feed of the most adorable dog I've ever seen in my life.
So sorry.
I don't think that makes him a bad person. I think it makes him a main character, but in opposition to Darrow or Darrow's kin.
Again, it's the parallels in a way. He's not the bad guy, maybe, but I definitely feel like he's going to still follow a similar parallel path. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to be the bad guys necessarily, but I definitely feel I don't think they're going to be on the same side.
So knowing that it's multiple different points of views for the next book, I think it'll be multiple different moral compasses that we'll be seeing. And I think Cassius is going to be the righteous without being the lawful, if that makes sense. I think we'll see a rebellious, a righteous, and a lawful.
Interesting. That's interesting, Reed. If you're to make the same call though, Kyle, as you were talking about Lysander, Cassius, some of the other characters we have lingering on the periphery, what would you make the call going into the next series?
I feel like Darrow has been kind of the good guy through everything. I'd be really interested to see if he gets put in some weird situations where maybe he's not the good guy. I don't know. He's been kind of this weird tout of in and out of this kind of he's always been the good guy, but he kind of makes these decisions and he's always been on the good guy side. But I'm kind of curious if now that we're on a whole separate trilogy, he's kind of a dad now. I'm curious where he's going to go, if he's going to always be the good guy or
I'm going to respond. Yeah. Think about Star Wars in general.
Yeah.
They are
the next. Yeah.
They're the protagonists. Vader. They're the rebels, but they're also literal fucking terrorists.
Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with the Sons of Ares as well. As righteous as they can be. I mean, that would be a little bit different. Him joining the Empire, him taking over as sovereign, which I could see happening as well.
I mean, Mustang killing his wife. Sovereign. Mustang is the sovereign.
Mustang is the sovereign.
She is the sovereign. So like literally it happened. I know you think that is like
no.
That like
I forgot.
She's the sovereign.
I forgot. That's yeah.
So which means he is the sovereign's like right hand. He is now the sovereign. Almost. Yeah. He is the king. Yeah. I mean, like their son, daughter, whatever is their child is the prince of the sovereign. I mean, like he is now at the highest situation in the galaxy.
The new Lysander, right? Like a new Lysander to some degree.
So Lysander is going to go and smother Pax at some point.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to happen here. There's a lot of options. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So wait, what was the original question though? Wasn't it just about the bad people in chat? Because I feel like there's a lot of other bad people.
We're talking about bad people. We got cut up on Cassius for a second. So let's talk about the other villains, the actual villains, not Cassius. Cassius is a villain that's there. But let's talk about like Aja.
They're all dead.
Well, Aja, the Jackal, and Octavia are all dead here, but they're very different perspectives that we get on the villainous persona, right? Like Jackal is a true schemer, Octavia is a manipulator, master, and Aja is just loyal. She's loyal to a fault.
She's actually like she seems like one of the most like badass, like the most powerful. She's intense.
She's the most powerful character in the entire series, no question.
Aja is like I would not want like one-on-one, dude, like she's insane. She could fucking rip up anyone.
What's crazy is just to speak to exactly what you're talking about. What's crazy is when you think about like hero sequences, it's generally the hero fighting off 4 other people, and they're sitting there and they're like battling against everyone else. And this is actually a flipped version of that perspective, where it's taking 4 heroes to take down the villain, and she is the own hero of her own story. And man, oh man, does she just like layer in the work as it comes to like the Willow Way and being like Lorne's. But it's truly like a reversal of the sort of way that final fights go. You can even think to like The Last Jedi, when it's Kylo Ren and Rey against the legion of soldiers that were protecting Snoke. And it's even a reversal of that, where it's like it's the bad guy protecting themselves against 4 good guys. And she almost manages it, which is nuts.
Do you really think Severo like totally like was able to take her down? I mean, like I know he was like shot with some crazy shit, but like, man, how did he do that?
I think it's the 4 of them. It's 3 versus the 4 changeover.
All right, at least one of them will be alive before the end of Dark Age.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that 3 out of the 4 people that are in the room
2 shots
Aja
on air that Aja, Octavia, or the Jackal, one of those 3 will come back to life before the end of Dark Age.
Okay.
Do you accept that bet? 2 shots.
Yes.
Sure.
All right.
It's a minor inconvenience.
For you?
Yeah, for me.
Okay. So I got something to say about the Jackal. I think he got off way too easy. Way too easy. I think he deserved so much more.
Yeah.
So much more death, so much more pain, so much more suffering. He just like, he got off so easy. Okay. Yeah. His tongue got cut off. Great. And then they hung him, and Mustang pulled his legs. Why did she pull his legs? Why didn't he just suffer forever?
Well, agreed. I think that's a callback to the beginning of the series, though, which is like the family, the loved ones pull the legs, right? And she actually, PJ and I talked about this in the last episode, of course, they haven't heard. Yeah. But we talked about it at length, and I think one of the things that's interesting is there's a question that remains around, did she want to go forward and pull his legs earlier? Was it Darrow that was restraining her? Was it the political motivation of not pulling her legs? Like, you should let this person suffer, right? Because he's a criminal against humanity. And so you should let that person, because of his inhumane crimes, suffer longer. But I think that she ultimately has a core emotional connection to him where she wanted to pull the legs earlier, for sure.
No, I understand all of that. Like, I think all of that is totally just. I just think in the writing, they could have just made his life so much worse at the end. Like, I think there was just so much room to just like really like make him deserve it. And of course, obviously, he's getting hung. Yeah, pull his legs. I mean, it's all totally just. I get it. I just think there could have been more. I think he deserved more.
I think if you haven't listened to the episode yet, when Darrow gets broken out of the custody by Trig and Holiday, Crossland asked what's going to happen to the Jackal.
Yep.
And my response was that Octavia wasn't going to waste the resources put towards planning the dissection of Darrow, and they were just going to dissect the Jackal instead. And I think that would have been better.
That would have been so much better. See, I would have loved that.
Man, what's fascinating, though, is that the Jackal is able to manipulate himself into a situation where he is going to take over the galaxy at this point.
It's not. I mean, it's more strong-arming than manipulation.
Well, it's strong-arming, but it's also like a collective manipulation, of course, because like the only way to get those on if he was able to like core into whatever the local structure was, which he has via media that he's owned over the last couple of books. I think the nuking of Luna, almost with everything else that is going on inside of the story, goes under the fucking radar in terms of like the humane violation of what the Jackal is doing, because you end with like this crazy battle against Aja, this crazy razor artist. You're taking down the Sovereign. Octavia dies, and her final dying breath is like, the Jackal is worse than I was.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, he's killing 6 million people at a time.
Yeah.
Fuck. And we only have minutes to like react and deal with this. Like, what the hell are we going to do?
Yeah.
And man, it almost, so much of Morningstar, especially at that end point, just comes so quick that it's so hard to, of course, like Darrow equally had a hard time like piecing out the decision making, but decided like pulling out the tongue and then like convincing Lysander, telling him to convince the Ash Lord to turn against the fleet just made sense. But man, the nuking and the bombardment of Luna is just crazed and brutal and paints. I think the Jackal is one of the all-time villains ever.
He was the villain of 3 books. All 3 books, he was the villain. Like, that's intense.
But he kind of made you think. Made you think that he was a good guy in the middle book. Like Golden Sun, he had this perspective of them working together. And while he might not be good, he's okay.
He was working together out of necessity, not out of like actual truce.
Yeah, never a good guy by any means. It was a weird.
I will say, I was
sure not a good guy.
A little bit upset by the lack of concern that Darrow had during the nuking when he went and actually attacked the Jackal, because I would have thought that any sort of inability to communicate with Lilith would have triggered nuclear holocaust.
The end times, yeah. Now, I
think it should have. I think in a tactical setup, I don't think there's any situation where the Jackal would not have that sort of end game laid out for Lilith.
I think it's agreed. I think what's interesting is kind of a mid-stop point, though, is like the Jackal is still alive, but he's without his tongue, and so that angers her, and she activates 2 bombs at once in that moment.
I would have thought that any sort of inability to give commands would have been taken as, I'm gone, activate nuclear winter.
Yeah, because no tongue is basically dead. Like in the voice of like a walkie-talkie, it's basically like, if you don't have your tongue, that means you're dead. Like there's no voice.
Right, exactly. Right. She could hear him squealing, though, over the line.
And that's even worse.
Yeah, that is. It enraged her. That's why she did 2 bombs back to back. But yeah,
and I think it should have been more planned out than that. Knowing the Jackal and how diabolical he is in most circumstances,
I think the Jackal wasn't hoping to even hit this point. I think that this is
of course really just not. But of course he has contingency plans.
Also, like, Darrow doesn't always make the best decisions. It's not like always it's going to be the perfect thing, and like that wasn't the perfect decision. Like 100%, like PJ, you totally call it out. Like that wasn't the best decision. And it probably should have led to a full on like detonate everything Holocaust, but like it didn't, and which is kind of weird, but like also like it wasn't the best decision.
You're also assuming that like Lilith is the worst kind of person, like that she would just detonate all those at once.
She's really bad.
Yeah, she's really bad.
she's a straight up minion to like, to evil. Yeah, she's crazy.
Do you guys think that she died?
No,
I don't like that you asked that question.
Yeah, I also don't like that you asked that question. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, why did you ask that?
Do you guys think that she died when they shut down the ship?
No.
Yeah, now I don't. All right. Well, new enemy for book 4. Great.
Interesting.
I think she's going to become the first of the Howl Riders.
Half-wolves.
Yep. That rides across the galaxy seeking both vengeance and justice. I don't know.
You're fired. Anything we want to say about Octavia or Aja here to cap off our villain bit?
Octavia wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know. Octavia, she was kind of like, I think she was meant to be like this big kind of like bad person, but she just never was actually like, I mean,
she was strangely grounded in the wrong opinion,
figurehead.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
she was a lot like, sorry, I'm blanking, Sephi's mom.
Alia.
Alia, very similar to Alia. Like she knew all the problems, didn't even care, just followed the same situations. You know, just
but she was in charge of the situation, which is what's so different with Octavia. She's choosing that actively.
I think Octavia was more passive in everything and kind of followed along with her Olympic Knights and her Furies in general. Aja seemed to be more autonomous than even Octavia did.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Aja was acting on the orders of the Sovereign, it seemed to be more of a spiritual thing than an actual, like, I'm following orders thing. It was more like Aja was following what was supposedly demanded by the Sovereign without necessarily being a direct order.
For so long that he's like, I'm doing the right thing. Like Aja's constantly like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm trying to do my best to support society, which I believe is right. And I think that also comes off in the way that she was taught by Lorne and some of those other perspectives that come in from the second book, and the way that she's obviously been trained by Lorne to be very purist, very stoic, very she is in her own right. She appears to be a villain, but in reality, she's just a victim of circumstance, because I think in a very different world, she would not be the way that she is.
Because Lorne's a good guy.
Kind of. He's a racist, but he's a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's still like, he was, I don't know. I always kind of felt like Lorne was kind of like on the good side. So it's kind of weird that, you know,
Lorne was definitely more, Lorne was directly and explicitly, not explicitly, but almost explicitly Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah. He was very close.
He was almost exactly Marcus Aurelius as far as stoicism and the following of him goes.
Yeah. So wait, PJ, you have read those books then, correct?
A little bit. Not to the same extent that Crossland did.
He started to read Meditations in the middle of this and actually noted something. What was it? It was Severus, and you equated the relationship to Severo that Marcus Aurelius has, because he references a brother named Severo. And we we messaged PJ messaged Pierce Brown, did not get a response on that one.
Correct. Oof. But yeah, in Meditations, there is in the opening book, he's talking about his brother Severus, which historically we know that Marcus Aurelius did not have an actual brother. So it's
an adopted brother.
It's hypothetically an adopted brother, and it's all talking about trust and trusting in your friends, and like it follows the ideal of Severo, especially through book 1.
This dude just stole Stoic ideology, painted it out into a crazy sci-fi opera, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and I'm not mad about it.
Oh no, not at all. I just really want to know. I really want to know how much is coincidence and how much is directly
inspired,
plucked.
Yeah. That's very cool.
So we've talked about how the next book series has multiple POVs, but I think an interesting question here for this book is, if you could choose any character's perspective to live in for this novel alone, who would you choose? Which character?
I got a few. There's a bunch of like little like empty spots that I really want to know about. Mustang, her like whole like what she felt, because apparently Severo was the only one who knew that, like, who really felt that Dara was still alive. What did Mustang feel? I mean, she was pregnant. Like, I want to know what the hell was going through her head. Like, oh my god, what the fuck? Just, am I a single mom now? Like, what's going on? Like, because the first time he sees her, she's like meeting up with like in this whole big congregation of people that it was just weird. Like, I mean, I know she was for good reason, but like, just an interesting stuff. I want to know what led up to that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Orion and the Pax. I kind of want to know all these space adventures they've been going on. I'm sure they've been having a blast.
Space pirates. Yeah.
Space pirates. No, they totally been space pirating for the past year. I'm really excited to hear about that. That could be like a whole like the Mandalorian thing going on right there. Like I want to hear a whole like series based on that. And the last one is just Roke. Maybe his like internal monologue of just like what the hell is going on from his point of view. I mean, again, I don't like the poet, but like he really like turned against Darrow and everything really hard, obviously for good reason. But like I want to hear if there's any sort of like if he ever like in his dreams just like misses the good old Howler days and like
I think he does. I totally agree with you. I think that I don't need anything from Rogue's perspective because I think it's portrayed when Darrow is living inside of his crew room and the only thing that's saved in his holovids is just the moments of the Institute. And he's just living in the past constantly. That's why I think Rogue is such an interesting character in the end when you start to like look back on the story is he had so many opportunities to do better and to be better than what he was. And in the end, he chose to side with the side that he'd been indoctrinated into believing and siding with. And Rogue, to me, is a very complex character because I think there are moments where Darrow could have swayed him to convince him that he could have done the right thing. But also, without those strict swing moments, there was no way Rogue was going to change. Rogue was set to be a bad dude, just maybe not as bad if... without
it was all when he put him under
intervention.
It was all when he put him under for that one time.
Right, which is
if he didn't do that, everything would have been different.
Wild.
It was that
it's
one
so
thing.
Wild because it made him question everything about Darrow. It's like, why'd you drug me in the middle of one of your grandest moments? Like, why? What?
It totally
and then
makes
like
sense.
Quinn dies, and he's like, I couldn't even save Quinn, and like it's your fault. Like clearly.
Which is why I do love this situation, because it actually is so emotional and it makes so much sense. Like you really feel so like connected to like why he feels that way.
But also think about the intention in that moment. He was essentially wearing a suicide vest.
Yeah.
Like what would be the thought process of Roke when he wakes up after Darrow detonates a suicide vest?
I wish
probably a little bit different.
I wish Darrow could have just explained it to him, though? Like, I feel like he just never explained it to him the right way.
And that's where I feel like
he doesn't.
Roke is the biggest miss. A lot of people focus on Tactus, and I think Tactus is a piece of shit who just agrees with whoever's in power. But I think Roke is easily convinced otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, Roke could have been convinced on the other side. Tactus will go with whoever has the most authority in the moment.
You guys have talked about Tactus a lot. I don't like Tactus. Fuck Tactus.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I agree. The fandom in general like really likes Tactus because he stands for a number of different perspectives. I understand why, but I just for me, Tactus. Yep, entirely. Whereas Roke has a lot of nuance and he's trying things. And he could have like tried this on to like to see if the dress fits. Even if it doesn't, he probably would have given Darrow a head start. Like it's kind of one of those characters where to me, like even if he decided he needed to side with Octavia in the society, he would have been like, Darrow, go. I'm going to let them know in 24 hours. Like he would have given that space in most circumstances. The only part that shits me out on my opinion is the fact that he very quickly sided with the Jackal when the Jackal realized it going into the end of Golden Sun. When the Jackal figured everything out and pieced it together, he was able to easily, with very little information, convince Roke to side with him to fucking kill Fitchner, to kill Lorne. And that to me is like, you suck, Roke.
I'd like to see more of a dissertation on how that went down. Because I have a feeling that it was a little bit more nuanced than that.
Sure.
In that Roke was promised something very explicit by the Jackal, and everything else kind of came along with it. That's not
he became king of the space like fleets. I mean, he was like straight up.
He was going to. He already had that he already had that beforehand. He was Imperator before that.
He did. Okay.
He was already.
We didn't really see him.
He was already the most like respected Imperator.
Yeah, he was
ever.
Good point.
Since since a historical figure from our history of Admiral Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's who he was likened to. So I think Roke was probably sold a bill of goods that included a lot more than what he bargained for.
That's why I feel okay about him, and I don't include him in the villain list.
Well, he's still a piece of shit.
He still is, and he deserves it all. But he could have been. He's the biggest could have been to me in the entire series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the point, though. I think the entire point is there's going to be really respected, powerful people on both sides that have their own moral compass. And regardless of what you believe in, they're going to believe in something different. And you have to build your story around that. And it's what makes a compelling story as well.
Yeah.
Like if
100%.
Roke wasn't like that, how boring would this story be?
Agreed.
This book would suck. This book would really suck if Roke was on Darrow's side.
The moment where Roke decides to kill himself is just so brutal and repugnant in a number of ways, and it's so defining of the character.
But it solidifies who the character is, and it really solidifies what he believed in.
Yeah, it doesn't feel out of character at all. It just it feels like a moment missed somewhere early. Yeah, it's definitely final in terms of words of Roke. But yeah, it's upsetting. Roke is one of the characters that I think about all the time outside of the series, where I just like go back and I'm constantly like, man, Roke could have been different. Tactus, it could have gone differently, but not. I cannot be conceived that it could have gone that differently. I think it would have betrayed him later.
Yeah,
but it just agreed. So rapid fire ish questions here. What was your favorite scene of this book or favorite moment?
I didn't write something down for this one. I was kind of hoping I would like think of it like during this whole talk, just to kind of like really like bring me back into it. I don't know. It's hard. I like in Morningstar here, there was a lot of scenes that I really liked, like a lot of parts. I feel a cliche saying it, but I really like how it just kind of like wrapped up in a way. I don't know. Like I kind of like just a happy ending. I just wasn't expecting it, honestly. I didn't expect things to like end up like wrapped up in a good way. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I was so used to so many cliffhangers. So like, and I don't like a clean ending. I don't know. Like, I think it's like too nice, but like, it is fun. I don't know. It's compelling to have like a good ending, and it still leads off to like a lot more like in the next book. So I think it's not like it didn't end it for me. I like how like I needed some time before I started the next book. So like, I like the ending. I'm not against it. I think I'm very content with how this book finished up, wrapped up. I'm just really happy. So like, I think just ending it was a good place for me.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Easy.
I think I've got to go with Ragnar and his interaction with the rest of the sort of feral obsidian society. Like the moment when one of the cannibals just kind of stops and essentially begs for eternal salvation from Ragnar. Like that was a really cool scene and a cool interaction of it was a completely different culture that we got introduced to in a very unique and intense way.
Yeah, no doubt. That entire the cannibal scenes are like live on in my brain forever. It's so different than the rest of this book. This book has like 6 or 7 different bits, which is wild. I
think we should have spent a lot more time.
Yes. I want more cannibals.
Talking about that. You're right.
Yeah. More, or at least more of the obsidians.
But
yeah. The obsidian, again, just the like I mentioned earlier, the obsidians and their relationship with Darrow seem half-hearted and not fleshed out enough.
I think there's gonna be more obsidians, and I'm excited.
But we already know that Darrow has like 15 times the amount of obsidians that the rest of Gold Society has. The Gold, Gold Society had something like 7,000.
Yeah. But are they his? Are they his obsidians? Or are they just obsidians?
I more meant the Sons of Ares.
Yeah.
And that's arguable as well.
I'm not going off Crossland's like very obvious like gestures right now, but like they just don't seem like
Crossland's not one to make obvious gestures. I take that as a red herring, honestly. Yeah.
I just feel like there's so much more with the obsidians than like what we've been giving. I feel like our feelings are basically are there on purpose. I feel like we feel this way because he wanted us to feel this way.
And there's not enough exposition on how he got them to join in the first place to make it feel like a reasonable betrayal or bolstering, depending on how it goes in the future.
I'm curious to see how you feel once we start reading the next books, because like I'm excited to read the next books. I know I'm probably taking Crossland's words out of his mouth right now because he can't say them, but like again, I haven't read ahead, but I just feel like I don't know. I feel like there's more. I feel like this is on purpose. I just have this like feeling that like there's more to come and we feel upset for a reason. That's just fair. Makes me feel like there's more.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, Pierce Brown does exactly that. Like if you're upset, there's a reason you're upset. And that is going to pay off into something. It might not be the way that you want it to pay off, but it will pay off.
Because I'm upset too, PJ. I feel the exact same way you are. And that's why I feel like there has to be like, if he doesn't resolve it, then that's his fault. But I think there's got to be some resolve here.
Okay. Yeah. Our final question of the night for this episode is favorite character. Who was your favorite character throughout the entire series? How'd you land? What'd you enjoy the most? What was the perspective that you dug?
You first.
I think for me, it ended up being Victra, strangely, especially in this reread. Victra ends up holding a very interesting place in the story where she is actually far more influential. And I don't think it goes recognized well enough, where she is at first, as PJ pointed out in our episodes, is lambasted for being very truthful, but being denied from being a potentially trustful individual because of her family. And she just proves it again and again and again and again. And people still keep questioning her. And it's like, why are you questioning this? Like, she's given up everything to be here. And even then, in those moments where she finally like reemerges with the troop of Julii ships, she is able to take those back with no question and she's way more trustworthy than Antonia is, and they all believe her because she's actually the inheritor of the well. Victra, to me, pure character, wonderful, glorious, love her more than anyone else in the series.
Are we talking about the series or the book?
This series, but like the book.
Then Cavax is my answer.
Okay. Love that.
I love him. I really do love Cavax as a character. He is simultaneously serious and wrathful and strong, and at the same time loving and jovial and just joyous. Like there are so many very, very, very strong emotions that come from Cavax as a character. Even though he's a fucking crazy person that feeds jelly beans to a fucking fox. Like, I love him. Like, he is my favorite character of the entire series. But that said, I don't think he's my favorite character of the book. I don't think he's my favorite character of Morningstar. He really doesn't show up that much. And when he does, he's a little bit watered down.
Guys, I'm at such a loss with like my favorite character because...
What's your gut say?
I mean, like, I want to like root for the Darrow protagonist because I just like the more I think about it, I'm like, I don't like any of the bad people. Like, I'm just like, I don't root for the bad people. I'm very like
Cassius is terrible.
I don't hate Cassius. I know it's so hard. Like, I'm in such a weird place with that. Like, I feel like every answer I have is like wrong because like I just like there's a lot about Darrow that I don't like 100%. Like, he is not necessarily the best character, but I love a lot of things about him. And like throughout the whole series, I think there's just so like he's on a fucking roller coaster of like who so complex. And I definitely can't say Mustang because like I think there's just so much missing with her. Like I think there's so much more that I'd want from her before I could say that I really like her. Like I just out of these main people, Severo has so many problems. He's so funny. I really like Severo. Again, I'm kind of coming in this like at the very end, like my first time on the podcast where you guys have talked about these people so many times. So like you guys kind of have these like more sub characters that you really like love, and where I'm coming in like at the very end being like, you know, like I feel like I can say like I like Darrow the most because
Darrow's fantastic. I don't slight you at all for thinking that Darrow's great, because I think Darrow, to be honest, from a protagonist perspective, has way more depth than a lot of protagonists have. So
totally, that's
okay.
100%. I think he's had so many ups and downs. He's made a lot of bad decisions as well, but a lot of good. I really like Darrow. There's not a lot of other ones who like really make me feel like I could just like go in depth on who they are and why I love them. I think I just kind of want to like maybe keep reading the next couple books and really like I think I have more. I think there's just more before I can like really pick my absolute favorite.
We'll invite you back. You can come on at the end.
Beautiful.
Either post book 6 or post book 5, whichever way we end up landing on this. Our goal is, hopefully, the way that I position this is to hope that by the time that we're done, we'll get an announcement of the very least of book 6, and we might like do a book in between.
Totally.
But we don't embark on an entire series in between this. But that's a hope. That's a hope. But it would be great to, of course, wrap up and like revisit a lot of these characters and thoughts and things like that. But you'd pin Darrow.
I think I'm going to go with Darrow. I mean, just like, I am not a protagonist in my own life, but I just like, I like who he is. I think he's like kind of, there's a lot of things about him that I just connect with. I don't know, maybe in my own situations and just how like, I feel like I felt a lot like him. I don't know. Like out of everyone, maybe it's just because we were in his monologue the whole time. Maybe we have the most connection to him throughout everything. But again, like my favorite book was the first book, was Red Rising #1. And I feel like in that book, he was going through so much. And he was so kind of just cunning right away. And he really like came off at the very beginning really cool. And he definitely changed throughout the second and third book, which is why I think overall there's like a lot of other characters who became more intriguing and better. But like right away, I don't know. Just really
You're bought into Darrow.
Yeah. I was just bought into Darrow at the beginning, so it's hard for me to like, again, and maybe that's just because of how fast I read it too. Like I felt like I was in his mind the whole time reading it so quick through all 3 books. Exactly. I was bought in by Darrow. Pierce got me. He just dragged me right into Darrow.
All right, Kyle. So this is the point in the episode of which you get to pimp out whatever you're doing. Talk about anything that you're working on, anything you're excited about going forward, whatever you want to talk about.
Oh man, I get to talk about me? That sounds
you here in the podcast.
Crazy. I mean, I guess like world events, we're like in a weird place in time. I'm super fortunate to still be like working and doing what I love. I'm glad that my job allows me to do a lot of cool things. I get to go to Montana in this next week and do a really cool, fun, personal short film, which is something new for me. I get to, I'm working, I'm able to pay my rent, which is cool. So like, honestly, I'm just thankful overall that like I'm able to just continue doing what I do, hopefully getting a vaccine very soon. In New York here, it just opened up for us. So like, we're just available to do it. But overall, man, I'm just pretty like super content with life. I'm a little overwhelmed with like how much stuff is going on, but that's a good thing. Like, I'm glad that I'm staying busy. I'm glad that I have a super cute little puppy that I get to like take care of every day. Got a great little situation here. I don't know. I have no complaints, honestly, right now. Everything is golden.
So I love the way you just answered that, but I'm going to push a little bit and say, if you've got to pimp yourself out a little bit.
Oof. I'm not used to that.
Like if you're talking to people,
you're making me uncomfortable, guys.
Yeah. But like, if you want to, I don't know, plug anything or pimp yourself out for anything. Like, I mean, what do you want people to go see? What do you want
your
people
Instagram,
to go explore?
Even just
follow the Instagram. It's at Kyle Lieberman. It's just a bunch of random photos. I don't post as often as I should.
I mean,
mostly bicycles.
We'll tag you.
We love bikes. We love bikes in this household.
Bikes are fun. No, I mean, like, I'm in New York. I mean, all my stories are about my dog. So, I mean, like, if you want to see a super, honestly, guys, just follow Everybody Loves Linus. That's what I want. Everybody Loves Linus, guys.
Showed me pictures of his dog during a break earlier today. It is the most adorable dog I've ever seen in my life. It's amazing.
I was on Kyle Lieberman at Everybody Loves Linus. Those are the two.
I was on a shoot this week. I was shooting for ASICS, and on set, I got more people to follow my dog than me. I mean, that's what my life is about right now. Like, I don't care. Did your dog come with you, Instagram,
or like, were you alone?
Oh no, he didn't. I just showed pictures of him to everyone on set.
that's hilarious.
Because I'm a proud dog dad.
Absolutely, as you should be.
All right. I got one more little shout out. I do own a really cool photo studio in Brooklyn. It's called Prospect Studios. That's a pretty cool, fun little endeavor that I opened up right before COVID hit, which was terrible timing to open up a business. But it also gave me a fun, safe space to like have to work out of, like, throughout the whole quarantine, play with my pup inside in like a nice big studio, and invested in a great photo video workspace, which is so cool. It's like 2 blocks for me, put a whole bunch of time into it. I'm really proud of it. So that's a fun little new endeavor as well.
I checked it out last January, right before COVID really broke out. Was it January? That was the
or December. Yeah. It was December. It was December, the opening party.
January, yeah.
Yep, December.
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic, and the space looked so great, and there was so much intention there. And obviously, COVID shit on everyone's intentions for every desire and purpose. But that said, the space is incredible. If for whatever reason you're looking for a photography space inside of Brooklyn, you could not be in better hands.
You guys are too nice.
Well, we're factual. So you say we're too nice, but we're just telling the truth.
I'm an idiot that barely reads. So,
anything else you want to say, Kyle? Any other final thoughts?
No, thank you guys so much. This was so fun, honestly. Like, I mean, it was kind of fun waiting this long, honestly. Like, just being able to like have you guys progress this far, like waiting till the kind of end here to like be a part of this. Like, again, like, I kind of wish I was like right away, kind of like got to get into it, because that was like right when I finished reading. It was like right when you started in a way. But it's really cool that like I got to kind of finish like this last book and kind of do this part with you guys. This was so fun, honestly.
Yeah,
this was the ton of fun.
Without a doubt. So glad to have you. Like I said, we'll definitely have you back at some point. If it's not for a short story episode, it'll be for something else. So we'll figure it out. No doubt. It was a great time. So talking about next week is going to be so busy after this week. We got 3 episodes for you. So this episode is coming out on a Thursday. Next week, the first up is going to be us covering a newly released and highly anticipated novella, Breach of Peace by Daniel Green. Daniel Green is a fantasy lover and a well-known, well-loved YouTuber. And I think it'll be interesting to follow this trilogy of novellas through as it's released. If we settle and decide that we can handle the entire thing. I've already read it. PJ is going to be coming upon it, of course. I listened to it the moment that I could, and I have a physical copy now that I've read through twice. So it's going to be exciting.
Second is going to be our special trilogy wrap up with the Red Rising darlings, Ben and Aaron from Howler Pod. If you are not familiar with them, I think we mentioned it in this episode. Yeah. Or that might have been during a break. I can't remember. If you heard it, you heard it. If you didn't, here it is. There's some great people that talk about Red Rising all the time on the internet, like we do. So we're going to jump on with them and have a wonderful time, I hope.
The third episode that is going to come out next week is where we're going to be kicking off this second trilogy that we've talked about in the Red Rising series, known as the Iron Gold trilogy. We're going to be talking about expectations, some thoughts of PJ moving into this second series, and whatnot. It's going to be a shorter episode. It'll probably be 30 minutes-ish, like we typically do when we introduce something. after this, we're probably going to be cutting off the intro episode, unless it's an intro to a book series or something like that. But this is going to be the last one of those kind of shorter form. But I think it's important to like kick off and talk about the establishing characteristics like we did over the course of this episode. So finally, thank you so much to Kyle for being here on the podcast. It was really phenomenal to have you. And I think we all had a great time. This is fantastic. We'd do this again any day of the week.
I'm so excited. I can't wait for the next one.
And that's where we're going to leave you for the week. Continue to refer us to your friends and family. Leave us a review on iTunes. I can't tell you how much it means to us to leave a review on iTunes. Silly enough, they're in charge of all of the recommendation algorithms across each of the podcasts. So follow us on your preferred platform, of course. But if you have an iTunes account, leave us that review. A 5-star review means a world to us of difference. It's crazy. You can find us, of course, at our website at Words and Whiskey Podcast or wordsandwhiskey.show. You can check us out on social media at Words Whiskey Show on both Instagram and Twitter.
Words Whiskey
We
Pod.
love you guys. Words Whiskey Pod. Words Whiskey Pod. I'll fix that in the edit. I am fine. We're doing okay.
Yep.
With that said, though, we think we do great work. We want to hear your thoughts. Send us an email at wordsandwhiskeypodcast@gmail.com. Like it's a great time. Reach out to us via our website or Twitter or Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. Recently, a couple of people have been following along in my reads of new book series that we're considering for the podcast. So tell me your feelings. You know, I've been reading Jade City and Jade War and love to hear more. But with that, next week we'll see you with Howler Pod.